All right, we will begin today's study session. Do we need to call a roll for this? I don't think so, right? Because it's just study session? All right.
Councilmember Dunn is on the line.
Right, okay, perfect. So this is the FY 2026 budget presentations. With that, we will note the roll. How about that? Just so it looks clean. And then we will turn this over to staff, which is weird seeing you sit at this table.
Believe me, it's weird sitting at this table. But I'm not getting, I know that I'm not getting the full effect because I don't have the heat of a bunch of angry.
Oh.
They can role play.
You guys, well, maybe they will. Maybe during the course of this evening, they will.
Well, we
And
started earlier, so, you know.
I was trying to remember who played this role in previous sessions, but then Peter was kind enough to give me a script from to go from, and he mistakenly left Ben's name in a couple of times.
Oh, that's funny.
So I think I'm Ben Bueller. I think I'm playing Ben Bueller's role
Yeah.
in a number of these efforts this evening. But I'm gonna go through a few things. This will be a group effort. Should make the evening go a little smoother. And Mayor, I think at some point we should probably talk about taking a break. We'll just have to figure out at what point that is.
Have you guys figured out a timeline on today?
We really haven't. We think we can get through this in 4 hours. That's what we did last.
You think you can get through everything in 4 hours?
We don't have to. We have tomorrow scheduled as well. So
Mike is giving you a dirty look and saying no.
I felt the heat. I'm already feeling the heat.
Mike's like, I've got 118
Feeling the heat,
slides.
so
I don't understand. Is it 119? I'm sorry, 119 slides.
I will say, just like last year, there is a Wildcats game for us to get to tomorrow evening. It's not like ASU ever makes the tournament. So those of us that U of A, Councilmember Bullock knows what I'm talking about. Bear down. We have reasons to get home during this time of season.
We have a speaker request form being filled out right now.
Figured we might. Maybe I should have mentioned that after our ask, not before.
So why don't we take this? Just to keep it moving, this is obviously everybody enjoys each other in this process. Sure. We're having lots of fun, and to keep that enthusiasm and momentum, every hour we'll take 5-minute break, come back in, and just kind of keep on crushing it if that's cool with everybody else.
Yep.
Is that good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
So just want to go real quick through our formal budget adoption process. It's on the screen there. Like I said, we have tonight from 4 to 8. We have tomorrow from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock if we need it. As you can see, our goal is to have our tentative budget adoption during the May 6th council meeting, which we will also want to get approval of our capital improvement plan. Between now and then, we have plenty of time to work with council either collectively or individually on any modifications that you might want to see. Of course, any modifications that we do to our proposed budget may require some adjustments internal to the budget, so it could take us some time, but we think we have enough time between now and May to get that done. Following that council meeting, we do have our public hearings on our utility rates, our truth and taxation, and our final budget. We have made a presentation already on our utility rate proposal. We hope to, in the same meeting, formally adopt our utility rates that we propose and get our final budget adoption. And then following along in June, we hope to have our property taxes adopted. All of this is scheduled so we can have everything in place prior to the beginning of the fiscal year, which of course is July 1. So just to talk very briefly about our budget summary. Of course, our goal, as is every year, is to have a balanced budget. We have paid particular attention and focused on your council priorities, the priorities that we went through during the most recent workshop a couple of months ago. We have, in past years, continue to set a goal and a target of no increases in our tax rates. our taxes may go up because of additional volume or property values, but the rates we have targeted as staying the same. We have, as we mentioned in a previous council meeting, proposed some modest utility rate increases. Utility rate increases that are actually lower than we had anticipated earlier in the year or last year. And we also have set a target of weathering inflation. As we all have felt in our personal lives, double-digit inflation affects just about everything we do, everything we purchase, every service that we buy, and the city is no exception to that. In particular, we have been hit hard on electricity rates, fuel rates, car parts. Our permits are getting more expensive, both state and federal. Our fees associated with jailing those that we arrest has gone up, and then our contribution to state funds has gone up as well, and that's just on the operating side. As you can imagine, on the capital side, these impacts of inflation are as impactful, if not more impactful, because of the things that we are actually purchasing. And now that we have the threat of tariffs, not that we have actually seen them yet, but there isn't a vendor out there that hasn't warned us that they will be forwarding on to us any tariffs that they experience. So we haven't planned for that in this budget, but it's something to keep into consideration as we're moving forward. Lastly, but certainly not any less important, our budget is consistent with the principles of sound financial management. And Mayor, we've heard you say that this is the equivalent of building investor confidence. We want to make sure that our residents understand that we do have principles that we honor, and as we're building our budget, and hopefully as you are approving our budget, we're mindful of those. But I want to finish by saying that even though this is our proposed budget, it's by no means perfect, and it is our proposed budget. We will have a process that begins today that will extend through the tentative adoption of the budget and possibly even to the finalization of the budget, where we'll be seeking both your collective feedback and your individual feedback on things that you'd like to see either added, subtracted, or moved one direction or the other in terms of our scheduling. So we'll get to that. You'll see here, and I'll describe in a little bit the flip chart that we had here last year that we're going to use again this year to keep track of the things that you all want to add or subtract or move. And as you can see, Kevin has already tried to fill the sheet, so there's no room for any other additions. But I'm sure there's multiple sheets on that chart that we can work with. I wanted to, we added this slide to demonstrate the city of Peoria's, the things that we're doing that have received national attention with respect to government efficiency. I think there's no mistaking or ignoring the fact that this is at everyone's top of mind when we're thinking about federal politics. The Doge, as they call it, but we were doing Doge before Doge existed, cool. Yeah. And before it was cool. I like that here, and to that effort, we've identified cost reductions in the tune of $738,000 ongoing in general fund savings. We have identified opportunities for us to increase our revenue, and we are looking at opportunities to update some fees that haven't been reviewed or adjusted in, as you can see, a number of years. At the same time, this is not a one-time or a snapshot in time. We meet every month. Our DCMs and I, deputy city managers and I, meet every month with our HR director and our finance folks to talk about what other things we could be doing to become more efficient and more effective when it comes to our financial picture. So, getting into tonight's agenda, I'm going to go briefly through our introduction and format. Peter's going to go through a budget overview, and then myself and the deputy city managers will go through an operational budget summary for a grouping of our programs, as you can see on the screen there. We'll then jump into the capital improvement program. Mike Faust will give a presentation on a number of our capital improvement projects, certainly not all of our capital improvement projects, but probably the ones that we should highlight as a city, the most important projects of the city. We'll go through them as well. We'll give a brief update on our development fees, and then we'll do a wrap up and go over the adds and deletes that we've heard through this exercise. So before I turn it over to Peter, right? Am I turning over to you? Am I turning over to you next? I just want to talk a little bit about the format. As I mentioned, we're going to do our best to keep track of things that you all want us to consider as an add or a delete to our budget, whether it be on the operations side or the capital side. On the capital side, if you would like for us to consider or plan for moving a project earlier in our schedule, we can have those conversations as well. I would suggest that making a decision about those suggestions at this point is premature. What we would propose doing, like we did last year, is that if a council member would like to add something to the proposed budget, we keep track of it on this chart. And then staff will work with that council member on getting a description of that, getting a better understanding, a more thorough understanding, identifying how much that might cost, and then to see if it's small enough, whether or not we could fit it within the current budget, and if it's sufficiently large, what we might recommend eliminating from our budget to make room for that suggestion. But we like to do that offline and individually with the council member, and then coming back to the council as a whole as we propose our adopted budget, and noting those changes for all of your approval. So if that's okay with you, we'll just move forward with that. That's exactly what we did last year. We'll just plan on doing that the same. So please feel free, and we've heard from some of you already, which is one of the reasons we have something already on the chart. Those things that are on the chart are currently in your budget book, but anything we're going to add to the budget book, we'd like to keep track on the chart, and then we'll work with you individually as you suggest them offline, and then bring them back to the larger body. Perfect. Sound good? All right. I think we are now ready to turn it over to Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Darwin. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to give like a 30,000-foot view of the overall budget, and then when I'm done, we'll turn the time over to the deputy city managers to go through some of the details on both the operating budget and the CIP. I'm not going to belabor this. Henry already hit upon it, but just in short, this budget complies with our council-adopted principles of sound financial management in every way. These are some of the main principles that relate to the budget. Again, not going to go into them, but it does build investor confidence. We're about to start talking to the rating agencies about some of our bonds, and this always comes up as a topic that looks favorable upon us and helps us maintain our AAA rating. In terms of the budget office, is just a graphic of how intensive this process actually is. It lasts the better part of the year in one form or another. And that's just the nature of public sector budgeting. It's really a burden, not a burden, but the departments bear the brunt of the work between September and December as they submit both their CIP requests and their operating requests. Once we get into the new year, it kind of shifts to the finance and budget department, working with the executive team to go through all those requests, which always exceed the resources we have available. So it's a difficult process to sort through all that, prioritize it, and make sure it's financially balanced. all toward the goal of bringing you a budget tonight that is balanced, that does comply with our principles. Doesn't mean it's perfect. We can make changes, but that's where we are. And then Henry already talked about the formal processes we'll go through in May and June to actually get the budget adopted. Okay, so the budget that you have before you tonight totals $1.17 billion. This compares to the current FY25 budget of $995 million. That's an 18% increase. I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why it's increasing by that amount. The largest portion of the budget is the capital budget, which this year totals $550 million, or 47%. This is where the majority of the increase is coming from. The capital budget is at 27% higher than it was last year. And I'll talk in a minute about some of the reasons for that. Also, Deputy City Manager Mike Faust will get into that a little bit too as he goes through the capital program. The operating budget for FY26 totals $478.2 million, or 41%. That's growing at a modest rate of only 4.2% over the previous year, and most of that growth is in personnel, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. Debt service makes up about 5% of the total budget. It hasn't increased a whole lot from the previous year, but as I just said, we are getting ready to do both a general obligation bond issue and then perhaps later in the fall a revenue bond issue for our water, wastewater, and solid waste utilities. So look forward to those discussions over the next few months. But for now, the debt service budget is about where it was last year. And then we have our contingency appropriation. This we've increased by about $36 million over the previous year. There's a reason for this. With the economic development issues we have going on, we're not totally sure what those costs are going to be. So rather than try to guess and just put them in the budget, we've bumped up our contingency, and we think we'll have plenty to cover when we actually get into those projects, any of the costs. And just to remind you, this isn't, the contingency isn't for any particular purpose. It's just a chunk of what we call appropriation or budget authority that allows us to kind of be flexible and do things throughout the year. And we need this because state law requires us, once we adopt the tentative budget, that fixes our maximum appropriation for the year, and we cannot exceed that no matter what. So we need this kind of flexibility built into the budget. Okay, I'm going to speak just in a couple of slides about the capital budget for FY26. I mentioned it's $550.2 million. This just breaks it out by the category of projects and by what is being carried over from the previous year versus what is in the base. You'll notice there's a large carryover. It's more than half the total capital budget. I'll speak to that in just a minute. And then do want to draw your attention to the fact that we have a new category of capital projects, which is the Peoria Innovation Corps. We wanted to group those projects together so that we can track them and report on them separately. So that's the Peoria Innovation Corps, and you can see that makes up a pretty big share of our base capital budget for FY26 at $107 million. Okay, so one of the reasons our carryover it really is big is that FY26 is going to be a big year for capital project construction in the city of Peoria. We've been building towards this. We knew this was going to happen, and now it's here. These are just a few capital projects, but if you add them all up, just for their budgets for 26, they're about $220 million, and all of these projects are either already in construction, like 67th Avenue and the Fleet Services building, or will be at some point in FY26. So that's a big reason for the carryover that we're seeing. And then finally on the capital side, just to reiterate where the money comes from here, we have a pretty good balance between the use of debt and the use of cash, or PAYGO as we call it. So we have about 44% of the total capital program being financed through debt mechanisms, GO bonds, and revenue bonds. And then we have a whole litany of other sources. We have outside sources, which is other people's money. We have our city transportation sales tax, at 11.5%. We use utility rate revenues, some cash from there, combine it with revenue bonds to finance that program. Impact fees help us pay for growth-related projects, and then we have cash from the general fund, half-cent fund, and a lot of other funds that make up that PAYGO category of 14.1%. Okay, so turning our attention to the operating budget in just a couple of slides. I do want to mention or just reiterate how big employee compensation is to the overall operating budget. It's by far the biggest category of spending. And just to illustrate that, in FY26, the operating budget's growing by about $20 million. And 15 million of that is coming from compensation adjustments. So about 3/4 of it is in compensation. That's both adjustments to compensation for existing employees as well as new positions that we're adding and all their benefits in that. We went into this budget cycle and into the negotiations with 3 of our labor groups with kind of a target in mind of, I have 2.8%, I think it was actually 2.9 for COLAs and 5% merits. And we didn't exactly hit those targets for all the different groups, but it was pretty close. So that was built into our forecast from the beginning. And all the different terms of those MOUs, which take effect on July 1st, are built into this budget.
Can I just
Yeah.
pause you there for a second, Peter? So you may be asking yourself, you know, how do we compare to the other cities around the valley when it comes to our compensation adjustments planned for fiscal year 26? We've done some informal polling of our peers, both myself and the deputy city managers, and we are either at or above what most other cities are planning on doing. I know it's important, and Councilmember Finn, you've mentioned this in the past about wanting Peoria to be the employer of choice. I think we've done a really good job, and Peter and Sean have done a really good job of baking, as we say, baking into our budget an opportunity for us to offer these type of compensation adjustments this last year. We are certainly hopeful that we'll be able to do this each and every year, but that's not, you know, realistic for us to be planning for that. But they've done a wonderful job, and it really made our negotiations with our 3 unions easier, having that set aside in our budget, planned for in our budget. But like I said, we've done some informal polling, and we're either at or above what other cities are going to be doing this upcoming year.
And then the last part of the compensation that I just wanted to hit is health insurance. That is a big part of that cost. For this year, both the city and employees will see a 2.8 increase in their premiums. That's very competitive with what's going on in other health programs in the valley as well as nationwide. And we think employees continue to get a really good value for their money in terms of their health insurance. Okay, I'm just going to give an overview quickly of supplemental requests that are included in the budget. Every department has what we call a base budget, so at a certain amount that carries over from year to year. If they want to increase that either on a one-time or an ongoing basis, they have to request what we call a supplemental budget request. So just to give you an idea of what is in this budget, we've funded or approved $25 million of one-time requests, 14.5 in the general fund and 10.5 in all other funds combined. We also approved 13.5 million in ongoing requests, 7 million in the general fund and 6.4 in all other funds. And then in terms of FTEs, we've approved 32 new FTEs in the general fund and 6 in the other funds. The cost of the new positions that we've added, those 38 positions, are about $5.7 million. And then just to hit on what Henry was talking about with inflation, I kind of went through and added up everything I thought was just increased costs to continue providing the same services we've been providing. That came out to about $6.8 million, which is getting better from the last couple of years, but still a good chunk of money. And then finally, just this table just summarizes our total authorized strength, as we call it, of FTEs in the city. With the 38 that we're adding in FY26, that will bring our total authorized strength to 1,469.25. Of the 38 new employees, 21 of those are in public safety, including 12 in police and 9 in fire. We also have 5 positions in development that are going to be covered by the fees that Mike Faust will be talking about, and 5 new positions in our utility funds. And the deputy city managers will talk about most of these new positions as they go through their presentations later on. So with that, that is my overview. I'm happy to take any questions about what's in the budget or anything financial related as it pertains to our forecast of the budget.
Thank you.
Go back to me. Oh, yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier
I think you
about,
guys are supposed to be like a tag team.
we were trying to choreograph this earlier. We don't know how
We're not
well
gonna
we're
actually
get.
tag, because that'd be lame. We're not gonna do that.
You don't want tag?
No.
No? Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, we are now going to transition into highlighting a few of the operational changes that have been proposed in our budget by Deputy City Manager, with me going over the administrative departments. So when I talk about the administration departments, we kind of debated which slides to go first. I'm going to go back and forth between these 2 slides. So when we talk about the administration departments, these are the departments that we're talking about. And what you see in parentheses is the operational budget associated with each one of those departments. So it's the city attorney. You see them on the screen. I will hit a few highlights, and this will be the same format for all of the deputy city managers. So just going back to the other screen. So those administration departments comprise about 215 FTEs. The total budget for the sum of all those numbers in parentheses is about $62 million, and they're funded through general fund and service charges. You see in the pie chart there that personnel is the majority of those expenses, but we do have some contractual obligations as well. But you can see that's you guys are in that that budget item as well. So just to go over a few of the notable budget items, the few of the additions. And I want to mention some savings as well that I don't think made it to the slides, not because it was asked for and not included, just that it came up as we were having these discussions, is that we are planning on adding a tax auditor. One of the things that we have realized is that we could do being a better job of making sure that everyone in Peoria is paying their fair share. And this actually provides a return on investment. And this is not expanding our program. This is just making sure that our current program of evaluating and making sure everyone's paying their fair share is fully staffed. We have a municipal security guard. I think you've all met Neil. Neil was, his position was created on a trial basis, where we used to have a PSO from the police department playing that function or filling that function. We decided to try a civil employee, maybe in part because Neil is so great, but we've decided to convert that to a full-time position, and the budget reflects that. Audiovisual specialists, that would include the work that is done here, but we have felt the need to create a position that's dedicated to audio and visual needs of the city. The city attorney's office has asked for 2 additional assistant city prosecutors. As you will see, that has a trickle-down impact in our courts as well. But because we're a growing city, because of our attention to public safety, there is an increased volume and need for city prosecutors. We've talked about this before, and as you can see the logo on the slide, we have begun our implementation of a new ERP. We will be in year 2 of that implementation, and there are costs associated with that. As I think we've mentioned before, Kevin is leading that effort, and to date, it's going well from what Kevin reports back. I know a lot of people in this room are contributing to that effort. As Councilmember Finn knows, this is no small task for an organization of our size. Our new Microsoft 365 enterprise agreement, and we are modernizing our software just like every well-run organization does. We do plan on conducting a citizen survey. There's a cost associated with that. We want to make sure that we update how our citizens view the city. When was the last time it was done?
2016?
So it hasn't been done in a while. So it hasn't been done since 2016. We want to make sure that the work that we're doing, that we're getting the feedback from our residents on how we're doing. And then there's there's some miscellaneous needs, contractors, consultants associated with the Peoria Innovation Corps, and we have $500,000 dedicated to that. Before I turn it over to Mike to go over his departments, I wanted to share with you some savings that we have realized in the administration departments. First and foremost, as you all know, we no longer have an assistant city manager position. That position has been, and the funds associated with that have been repurposed. There were a number of lobbying contracts that had existed. I think that we've had some public testimony regarding and public questions about those lobbying contracts. Those lobbying contracts, most of those lobbying contracts have been terminated in the past 6 months, just for a lack of need, a lack of an ROI. But all told, between the assistant city manager position and those lobbying contracts, they represent about $750,000 a year. So those savings, those funds have been reallocated throughout the city. So more than anything else, I wanted to share with you and with staff that the city manager's office is doing our part in trying to find means of reducing our costs, and when reducing those costs, reallocating those costs to more high value opportunities. The Peoria Innovation Corps is an example of where a lot of those funds have been reallocated and rededicated. So before I turn it over to Mike, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Seeing none?
All right, thank you.
Grab that, dude.
Excellent. Thanks for the opportunity to talk on the development department. So this is comprised of planning and community development, development engineering, and economic development services. These 3 departments work very closely together on all the projects that are running in a city, whether it's an economic development project or just a general community development leading all the way to residential. In total, the departments make up about $20.5 million of the total city budget, 97 FTEs, with the predominant nature of those being in development and engineering. As you can see, these departments are predominantly full-time employees, 75% of it being personnel expenditures. The 24% contractual, it's usually a blend of staff augmentation contracts and specialty services, and I'll touch on one or two of those as we get into the details. For this year, the supplemental asks were in a couple of different facets. I won't get in too much about how we're funding them because we are going to talk a little bit about development fees towards the end of this evening. Hopefully we can keep pace and we can wrap those topics today. One of them being a CIP project manager. This employee is a fixed-term benefited employee. He's been here 3 years. We have a large host of internal projects we're working in the architectural services. So this is recognizing that and converting that person from a fixed-term benefited to a full-time employee. Each of these employee-related expenses are full wrapped costs. So these just aren't salary. It's including employee-related expenses. I did not do that.
It's done.
Watch that for me. A senior real estate, real property administrator. So what this position does is that we spend a lot of time acquiring rights of way. So an example of this would be on 67th Avenue. We need to get rights of way to expand the roadway, put the utilities under the ground. It takes a lot of effort, especially when you're crossing, in that particular project, probably a dozen real estate transactions in order to make that happen. We have projects going all over the city. So in addition, the current person in that role has already been taxed for quite some time. And in many of our positions in development engineering, we have folks nearing the end of their careers. And so starting to plan for those transitionary periods is important. So we view this as probably a 3-year transition where we're bringing additional resources to help with all the real estate transactions. We're training up new resources and then helping support people transition to the next phase of their career. Impact fee analyst, this is a new position. We intend to fund this through an alteration to the impact fees because one of the prescriptions within law is you can put the costs associated with administering your impact fees into the cost of the fee themselves. We do that currently for the study, but we haven't done that for the accounting. The efforts to handle the accounting for impact fees is no small tasks, especially when you have to deal with the individual reimbursement agreements and all of the accounting that goes with it. So we see this as a real need. ITS technician, this is around signals. This is around our intersections, and I think we're up to 151 traffic signals now throughout the city. And the need to keep those up and running and dealing with the maintenance of those is a heavy lift. And so we need to add an additional resource. Now, I will note, Kevin and I have been having some conversations about how best to manage this pool of resources across the city. So we have needs in multiple departments. Our strategy here was to add one and then leverage that across a couple of departments. And so we're working through that. The last bullet here, contract development services, you'll see it's a rather large number. This is really staff augmentation, the largest part of which is building plan reviews. There is a line in here for $450,000 specifically earmarked to help us with plan reviews of the Amcor facility. They're going to give us 6,000 pages of drawings in the next couple of weeks, and so we're bringing in some staff augmentation for that. You'd say, why would we spend $450,000 on outside help? Well, partly because we're going to probably generate around $6 million worth of fees. And so it seems like a pretty decent trade-off to be able to get through that large of technical drawings in a reasonable time. On the planning and community development side, we do have this business systems analyst. What this position is it's IT related. We do not have a business resource that specifically works with our permitting software, which is Acela. So we've had this need for a while. The position was funded through a fixed-term benefited in last year's budget. We've been unable to fill it. There's too much risk for people to go into a one-off position as a short-term scenario. So this conversion takes that to an FTE. We are intending to build this into the fees, and we'll talk about that structure, the final segment of the study session. And then this last one is just creating one tier up in our planning and community development planners, going from a senior planner to a principal planner. We think that creates a little more balance across the team. And given the complexity of some of the projects and the level of analyses that are having to be done on the zoning cases, having a principal planner is going to help balance out the team a little more. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Seeing none?
Brilliant.
I get to leave, yeah. Oh, you're next?
I'm next. Just do the next slide. Thank you. No, I'm sorry, same presentation, it was just the next slide, sorry. I know, see, I'm screwing it up already. All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've got the operations section of the operating budget. This is 5 departments that include Arts, Culture, Library Sciences, Neighborhood and Human Services, Parks and Recreation, Public Works, and Water Services. Combined, it's about 490 employees and almost $200 million in operating budget. We'll go through each one of them individually, though, because they do have some notable operational elements that you may want to comment on. Starting with Arts, Culture, and Library Services, we've got about 37 employees and $9.5 million budget. This is primarily general fund, but there are user fees, and there is a significant funding source that comes from the percent for the arts. That's the fee associated with capital projects that is then moved into the arts program. Looking specifically at some of the notable budget items, probably the top change in the budget this year is an event supervisor. Certainly our events have grown, both in the size of the events that we sponsor and the number of events, and it's just reached a point where it's time to add a supervisor to manage those contracts and those coordination and getting those all up and running. Events and libraries run on part-time folks as well. They're an important part of our overall operation. So a lot of that, however, is funded with one-time money. What we were able to do is put about 40,000 of that 175 into ongoing. So we're trying to get that as more of an anchor in our budgeting as we move forward into the future years. Special events, a number of our special events are funded in one-time elements, so that's why they show up each year. These include things like SOMOS, holiday lighting, Park Fest, Second Saturdays. It also will include an expanded event associated with Light at Play. This is a really exciting event that happened just a couple weeks ago, and it was a big hit using the projection art and using in downtown on some of the buildings and doing some really cool things with that. So those are items you'll find under special events. And then lastly, I talked about the percent for the arts. This is where that it's $551,000. It goes to public arts, arts programming, arts education, and in particular, arts grants. We have a pretty sizable allotment of about $275,000 for arts grants that are managed by our Arts and Culture Citizen Committee. They see those in, evaluate, make awards that are then forwarded on to you all for approval. So that's arts and culture. Moving on to Neighborhood and Human Services.
Yeah, please.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you go back to the slide,
You betcha.
Kevin? So I have a question on the ongoing and one-time costs. Is there an opportunity to bring the Veterans Day event from a one-time event to ongoing? Because we have it every year, and we've had it every year for, I can't even remember how long. It just makes sense to move it into an ongoing.
It's definitely worth the consideration. I know that we looked at a number of these as ongoing this year. I believe that one's somewhere around the $45,000 range for the veterans. It's just kind of when we get down to the end of what things can we do with the ongoing, what things can we do with the one-time. It didn't make the recommendation, but I'm happy to put it on the ads column as a possibility.
Okay, please do. Thanks, Mayor.
If the writing looks different, it's because Brenda did the original. I'll confess now. All right.
She wrote in cursive, which you never see anymore.
I know, right? That's a lost art right there. All right, moving on to Neighborhood and Human Services. This is a department of almost 73 people and $22.5 million. Again, there's a large general fund component, but there is a very substantial user fee and federal and state grants associated with this department. The user fees come through a lot of our programs, the AM, PM programs, summer camps, things of that nature, and I'll touch on those a little bit in the next slide. And obviously, there's some significant federal and state funds associated with some of the programming that this department does. 5 notable budget items to talk about. One, and you'll see this in a number of other departments, is that you'll remember Arizona voters approved Proposition 206, which set the minimum wage and then set an index associated with it. We do have a number of minimum wage folks that this applies to across neighborhood services, parks, and some of our other part-time areas. And so that increase is noted right here in that 81,000. But it also shows up as we look at the program increases. That's really broken across 3 elements: summer camp, Little Learners, and the community center. All of those have part-time, non-benefited workers that are seeing that minimum wage increase that applies. But we also have some changes in recreation programs associated with the camp, some vehicle rental associated with the Little Learners, and then some additional training requirements associated with our community center when they provide adaptive, active adult, and adult day programming. There's some associated training that they need to keep up with and some elements associated with that. The neighborhood grants has been a very successful program, and we're actually doubling the size of that in this year's budget. With neighborhood grants, these are elements that go for HOAs, but also traditional neighborhoods for any sort of the community improvement projects that might be happening in there. Security, safety is also a big component of that element. Homeless services, this is, again, we lead with services in this area, so before we do anything else, we start by offering folks a way to a better situation. And so we have navigators in this money. We also have beds and bed nights in this $150,000. And then last is the transit operational needs. This is our microtransit program that you saw a couple weeks ago as a presentation. About $1.25 million of that money, 1.1 million of that is associated with that transit program. We also have some updates to the dispatch software, and lastly, there's a vehicle replacement. The beauty of that vehicle replacement is that it's 85% funded by federal dollars and only 15% local, but you got to appropriate the whole amount, so it looks like a big number when you get in there. Any questions on NHS? Sir?
Thank you. Yeah, I have one question. I had 2 notes in here in my book. One was on the transit increase of the 1.5 approximately, but the other one, which you just answered, thank you. The other one though was on the summer recreational program that shows a decrease of like 96% budget-wise, 252 down to 10,000.
This is a phone a friend moment, so I'm gonna ask Chris Hallett to come on down and talk about that.
Can you say it more like the game show? Chris Hallett, come on down.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
I'll help you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council, Councilmember Fan. That's actually part of the economic impact feasibility that we did up front, and that's the summer rec is being defunded and wrapped into our summer camp program.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Good answer, Chris, good answer.
It's on the board, it's on the board. All right, then the next operational department we're going to talk about is Parks and Recreation. Getting slightly larger with this one. We got 91 FTEs and about $32.5 million. Again, general fund is a predominant funder here. The sports complex, however, is an enterprise fund, which is substantially self-funded, but there is still a pretty sizable transfer in that comes each year. But user fees are a big part of this budget. User fees for field rentals, for swimming programs, things of that nature, swimming lessons, all factor into the revenues associated with this department. In terms of notable expenditures, there's quite a few bullets. I'm not going to go through every one of them on the board. I'm going to jump down to the Moore division. We certainly had a conversation about this earlier in the year, and this is where we're taking the next step by actually funding this program. $1.5 million. Looks like quite a bit, and it is a sizable amount. Recognize of that, only 400,000 is ongoing, the rest is one-time money. And of that 400,000, that's really getting staffing involved. That's getting a division manager associated with the program and also a volunteer coordinator. Remember that this is a program that is going to be heavily dependent upon volunteers associated with trail management, some of the open space management, things of that nature. The next item is Vistancia Special Use Park. You probably don't know it by that name. It's often referred to as the ALA Park, the American Leadership Academy Park in Vistancia there. This was actually an obligation by the Vistancia developer to provide that park. The ALA contributed to it. The park should be completed in FY26, and therefore we got to start operating it. And these are the associated operating costs for maintaining that park on an annual basis. Some of that is startup, but some of that is continuing ongoing. And then the last one I'll just call out is the Pioneer Park entry monuments. We've had some repairs and could definitely use a refresh on some of these entry monuments, and so we've got an amount allocated for that. Any other questions on Parks and Recreation? Yes, sir.
Yep. So you look at the capital overlay, it was about 21.5%. Can you just give me a little 30-second overview of that increase in the Parks and Recreation? Because I know there's the more program, there's other things, but the actual capital overlay under the operating budget summary shows 21.44%. Can you maybe just get an idea of what that's going for?
I believe that's related to the supplemental request for the asphalt at the parks and trails.
Yeah, I didn't hit that one. There's $1 million associated with that asphalt renovation. We have this has been kind of a no man's land a little bit, where every park has obviously an asphalt parking lot and a number of concrete elements around the perimeter of it. And so Parks tends to focus on the landscape portion of it. Asphalt's not their expertise, so a couple years ago we started bringing in our Public Works Department to take a look at that, but funded out of the park side of it. And so we have three parks that have really fallen behind and have some pretty substantial asphalt and concrete work that needs to be done.
Councilor Finn?
I don't believe that I pushed it.
Okay, never mind.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
No problem.
Anybody else? Good.
All right, very good, thank you. We'll move on to Public Works. This is one of our larger departments that's not public safety, at 172 employees and about $70 million budget. Their funding source is very diversified because pretty diversified operations. Certainly, HERF is the Highway User Revenue Fund, which is an acronym for the gas tax. So a portion of the gas tax is allocated for maintenance of city streets. Obviously, that falls to Public Works. User fees, we see those primarily in our enterprise funds with solid waste. All those fees are considered user fees associated with the work that's being done there. And then the transportation sales tax. A part of that comes into the Public Works side for maintenance of streets. A good chunk of that goes to engineering for new streets, and that's kind of the division of labor there. Engineering builds the new streets, Public Works takes care of them once they're in existence. Getting a little deeper into some notable budget items. If you look at these, you'll note that most of these are pretty small dollar amounts, but they each have their own impact. Again, I'm not going to hit on every one of them, but a couple of them that I'll call your attention is the HVAC automation system. This is really more of a digital issue. It's updating the software associated with our HVAC. The last time that was done is 2020. There's obviously some cybersecurity elements associated with that. There's also some automation conveniences that come with that upgrade. The fleet mobile column lifts, I call that one out mainly because it's an indication that we're getting ready to move into the new facility next year. Once that facility is built, we actually need to we'll bring all the equipment, but it's obviously a larger facility, and so we're adding some equipment as we make that transition. The other one that's, I think, interesting is this digital traffic sign printer. We're responsible in the city of Peoria for over 25,000 street signs. That's quite a few signs, and their maintenance is dictated by federal regulations, and so we have to replace those every so often. We do about 1,700 a year in our current capacity. We need to be doing probably almost close to twice that. We're a bit behind. We have about 6,500 signs in our backlog. So by adding the digital printer and we put some folks to this last year, this should really increase our capacity to closer to about 3,000 signs a year that we're able to knock out. So just one small change, like a digital printer, can make that really work. And the last one is the sweeper. That's an important part. The great part here is that's 95% funded at a state level. The MAG pays for that because of dust control, which helps our air quality issues. And so every so often, we're able to replace the existing sweepers and get those largely paid for with pass-through dollars. Any questions on Public Works?
None.
Okay.
You want to pause? 5-minute break?
I got one more, if you don't mind, and then I'll be
You're already
done.
breaking the rule, that's good.
I don't think.
Kevin, can I make one clarification?
Yeah, yes, please. You're taking my time, but okay.
Back to Councilmember Bullock's question about the increase in capital for parks.
Yeah.
Just in going back and looking at that, a lot of it is related to, we have surcharges on spring training tickets that then are used to make investments in capital investments at the sports complex. That's where the majority is coming from. Some was also for vehicles related to the Moore Division and the new Vistantia Park. So that's where most of it's coming from.
Great. All right, last operation department, and we'll make a clean transition. Water Services, about 117 employees and $60 million in budget. This is funded entirely with user fees, with the water and sewer rates. Oh, let me just back up real quick. If you look at that pie chart, this is unusual in our organization to see only 24% of a budget dedicated to personnel and the rest contractual. And that is because it is it's very heavily funded from a standpoint of acquiring raw water, engineers, lab work, things of that nature associated with contractuals. Commodities is an important part too, as we pay for chemicals, utility increases. So there takes a lot of outside elements beyond personnel to make that department tick. In terms of the notable budget items, really heavy emphasis this year on new positions related to environmental regulations. You'll see 2 environmental compliance inspectors, one on the water side, one on the wastewater side, and then the industrial pretreatment coordinator. In all candidness, this is really gearing up for the AMCOR regulating and monitoring AMCOR's industrial waste. And so this is just the first step. We got a couple more as that comes online and we get ready for it. So I know there's certainly concerns in the community. We are absolutely gearing up for those and mirroring those responsibilities on our part. The last piece is the SCADA specialist. SCADA is essentially our wireless network that connects and operates our plants. This is separate from our IT network, and so it's a radio transmission element that allows our folks to keep track of wells out in the field, pumps, motors, where the water's going, where it's being pushed, what kind of condition, if a plant's online, offline. It really helps manage our staffing levels because of how robust our SCADA system is. That being said, we still got to add some folks to it as we continue to, one, worry about security, but two, make sure that we're keeping up with the technology and the elements that are being added to our inventory. The second bullet is the water delivery fee increase of $2.4 million. We've been seeing these increases over the last couple of years, really ever since the federal government issued what did they call it, Tier 1, or there was the first level of drought on the Colorado River. We've started seeing some pretty significant increases in fees. We've been able to defer those primarily because there was some substantial federal dollars through the Inflation Reduction Act that allowed us to essentially pay those fees by keeping the water in behind the Hoover Dam and then getting paid for it and then using those fees to pay for some water credits. Time has come and that money's running out, and we just need to build these into our costs. These are reflective in our water rate increases. So that 3.5% increase includes this raw water delivery that we get from the CAP. The fire hydrant repair truck is self-evident. Cost increases, breaking those down just a little bit. This is primarily utilities. Electricity is a big part of how we run our plants. Fuel is an element as well. You also got chemicals, tools, and repair and maintenance on equipment that all are driving that cost inflation that we talked about in one of the earlier slides. So with that, that's the end of operations. Any questions on water or any of the other ones?
We're good?
All right.
Thank you.
We'll take that break.
All right, let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll rally back up. Everybody come back with coffee and energy.
I'm sure that won't happen. Is there something going on with this monitor back here?
We can all see it up here on the dais.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, yeah, we're good. I just, I like all my stuff working here, but that's fine, that's fine. Like everybody else, Kevin's, it worked for you. All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We're gonna run through, public safety. As you can see, public safety runs deep here. We're, doing it a little different. I'm gonna tee it up and let the, chiefs and the presiding judge, talk through their ask. So, first we'll go to, police. To the extent that this budget is adopted, police department would be at 375 FTEs. Just, and going back and looking since 2023, this represents an increase of 50 FTEs. And so that kind of shows our investment there in the police department of 15%. Of the total budget, 78%, like the other departments, is related to personnel, 17% contractual, and then 5% commodity. Total budget of $88.4 million, and the police department's funded through general funds, grants, and forfeiture funds. And with that, I'll hand it over to Chief Intrieri.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Darwin. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I want to go over some of the highlights of our budget requests. Our request includes 12 positions, 2 of which are aviation unit positions, one being a mechanic specific for the Bell helicopter that can assume a lot of the work that has been done by Detective Edgar Burrows that you heard about last night. Just want to point out, Detective Burrows is not technically assigned to the air unit, but because of his experience as the previous sergeant of NYPD's aviation division and his experience with aviation mechanics and maintenance scheduling, he's been a tremendous asset. So he is a forensics detective, so he does deal with digital forensics as his full-time assignment. But this mechanic position would replace that, would fill that need for us, as well as an administrative assistant that would provide support, not just for aviation, but for the Metro Division in its entirety. The Metro Division includes the Real-Time Crime Center that you saw on Monday, SWAT, canines, the negotiator team, our drone or special equipment team, and then also traffic. So that administrative need is highly sought after. School liaison officers. So this would bring us to a total of 8 school liaison officers and 13 school resource officers as a complement. This would fill and complete our council initiative to ensure we had representation in all of our Peoria schools. Civilian investigator positions, these 2 are again, these are 2 positions that we would like to use to staff the Real-Time Crime Center. These civilian investigator positions, we will be seeking people that have law enforcement experience so that they can readily identify activities that are of interest to us from a public safety standpoint and be able to complement the sworn personnel we currently have assigned there. The 3 sworn positions, one is a sergeant position for patrol, 1 officer that would be assigned to patrol, and the 3rd officer position will be assigned to the aviation unit to bring that to a total of 4 positions assigned full-time to aviation. Wellness coordinator, wellness coordinator is really the wellness program. We have 2 positions there. We did have a detective assigned to that position previously. We upgraded that position to a sergeant, so it'll be a wellness sergeant that will oversee the entire wellness program to include succession planning, mentorship, and career development opportunities. That program is what that sergeant will be responsible for, as well as providing supervision and guidance to a wellness coordinator that we are hiring, a civilian that'll come in with. Our candidate that we're currently working with and going through the process with has over 20 years of experience in working with law enforcement in the wellness as a wellness component. So she is vastly qualified. Administrative Assistant 2, this will work directly with our finance and administrative folks. Will be responsible for assuming a lot of the role within a department that is tasked with the budget, with payroll, with training, and many of the purchase requests that come through that area. That's an important position for us because our staffing on the professional staff side, the support side, has been pretty lean over the last 14 years. We have not added to that specific area, and so this will help tremendously cut down on the workload for those that are already in that area. And in property evidence tech, as you know, we just started working on the development and improvement of the multipurpose facility that we purchased a few months ago. That will be the base for our impound yard as well as our property later on. This will enable us to ensure that our staffing for the property evidence section has 1 supervisor and 5 techs to ensure that that flow going from our headquarters location over to the impound yard, we can do that without missing a beat and without any deficiencies in operation. Miscellaneous equipment, throughout the department, we're asking for several needs, mostly small in nature. PSAB conference room, as you know, the PSAB's been there for over 20 years, and we would like to kind of bring it to modern day in terms of the professionalism and bring in some of the technologies that can be utilized. We'll be able to import real-time crime center feeds in there as well. So I will be able to be visually engaged and involved with operations as they unfold without having to leave headquarters in order to improve efficiencies rather than having to drive all the way up north. That, along with another or several other benefits that this will bring into us as we're starting to entertain outside entities, other government agencies coming in as we're developing partnerships moving forward. I think the professional feel of those conference rooms will be a tremendous bonus. And then last, the Metro Operations Tactical Robot, this is for $64,000. This is being funded by RICO funds. Our current robot's about 15, 16 years, which is well beyond the shelf life typically of a tactical robot. And so this is a much needed asset for our tactical team.
In the spirit of being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, Chief has come in, he's looked for areas that we can do functions that were previously done by sworn and be able to fill those with civilian. And so those 2 civilian investigators would be one, and the wellness coordinator is there, and that saves us money on the pension side. It's a lower cost resource, and I just wanted to point that out. So we'll switch. Yes.
I'm sorry, I have one question before we move on, if you don't mind. On this slide here, can you just help us understand, or me, refresh my memory on why like a school liaison officer, if you do the math on that, that's what, $350,000 per FTE, or if that's the way that it reads to me. Can you help me understand why that is? Wellness coordinator, if it's $353,000, I'm trying to process that in my head, why those are that high. I think I asked this last year, and I don't recall the answer because I think I made some comment like, I need to be a wellness coordinator. I'll make more money.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can answer that.
Sure.
The numbers that are shown there are the one-time and the ongoing costs combined. So it includes all of their equipment, the tools, et cetera, vehicles that are grouped into that one-time cost, and then that's why it appears like they're costing $350 per. But the officer, it's about $170,000 ongoing with salaries, employee benefits, pension, et cetera, like that. So if you take that and double that, it's around 350, and then you take all the other stuff that goes with it. The safety apparel, fleet, service charge replacement, existing vehicles, computers, computer software, all the different software that goes into it, training, travel, budget, social security. It's all listed out here in vehicles, so.
So they're not going to be ongoing? It's a
No.
mixture of ongoing costs along with the one-time. Does the wellness coordinator have that same setup, all of the equipment and everything else, or?
So the wellness coordinator, it's really two positions. It looks like it's one, but it's the detective position that was previously there that has been upgraded to a sergeant at a cost of about $60,000. And then the wellness coordinator, in addition to that, it's about $130,000.
So that represents two?
It represents two
Okay.
positions. And then that also includes the one-time, all of the equipment, et cetera, that's needed for that position to be
Thank you.
functional moving forward. Yep.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, I have a couple of questions for you. So can you kind of briefly talk about your planning processes for additional facilities and for manning those stations? Because as we're growing to the north, I don't see any line item requests for additional stations, additional personnel to man those stations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So this year, I think we were trying to be mindful of the future in terms of building that foundation or hardening the foundation we have. So that's why you see a lot of support positions, a lot of professional staff positions. We do have two stations right now, PSAB, which is what we refer to as 103, the headquarters, and then 107, which is our north station located up on Lake Pleasant Parkway. Lake Pleasant Parkway was, or the 107 station was initially designed and built to be two phases. The first phase has been completed. The second phase is on our capital improvement plan. For this next year, we're going to be, fiscal year 26 will be in the design phase. Fiscal year 27, Ed assured me that it would be completed under budget. So by 27, we should have that additional resource, additional office space, et cetera. But you bring up a good point, and it's something that we are talking about moving forward, forecasting where that growth is. And I've talked with Chief Bernard about how is he planning for the future moving forward so that we can look up north and look either to the northeast or northwest and identify what kind of facilities down the road do we want to staff. With the infrastructure and the staffing on the professional staff level from a support standpoint, as we move forward and as that population continues to grow, we will have a need for additional sworn members to help improve our service and help grow our service, in addition to some of the civilian positions that we've already incorporated, like the civilian investigators or police investigator specialists that we currently employ in a full-time benefited pilot project that the council approved last year. It's already proven to be very successful. So that additional space at 107 will afford us the opportunity to grow into that, to add not just sworn, but civilian positions that can provide quality customer service to the citizens.
Okay.
We need to, I'd like to add to that and keep in mind that we've made some significant investments in our aviation unit and also our real-time crime center that lessens the need to a certain extent to, I don't want to say replaces officers, but it lessens the need because we can get places quicker. We can traverse the 180 square miles of Peoria quicker and that. And so not to say that it's a one-for-one, but we talk about it being a force multiplier. And so we can't forget about the investments that we've made there.
Thank you, Travis.
And then the second question I have is, can you briefly describe some discussions or ideas that you have for retention of your current force and recruitment?
Okay.
So, as you're looking to bring on these officers, what are we doing for recruitment bonuses? Are you doing something like that? And then the officers that you currently have, what are we doing to retain them?
Right. So I'll start with the recruitment piece. we've already had some robust conversations about recruiting, working with my staff, and I actually have a couple of the members of the Peoria Police Officers Association take the lead on developing a recruitment and retention committee within the membership so that they have some ownership and some say and some input in how we do that. But we're identifying, we're looking at what other agencies are doing from a recruiting standpoint. We are considering recruiting bonuses, signing bonuses. We're looking at the idea of trying out through pilot projects some benefits for these new hires. Maybe if they come in with some experience as a lateral officer, give them the opportunity to move into a specialty such as traffic. We know how important traffic enforcement is here in the city, and we don't have enough of them right now, so that's one of the areas. So we're looking at whether specialty assignments would be a good draw for them as well, and how that would fit into our current staff and what the demands are for current personnel that are having interest in those areas. From a retention standpoint, the wellness program, and I talked about the succession model, if you will. It incorporates a mentorship program, a formal mentorship program from day one of hire, as well as a career development program that starts at about year 2.5, that really encourages employees to take the initiative to identify one of 3 pathways, and in some cases, all 3. That would be proficiency, for them to develop a more efficient proficiency in their current skill set and need. Specialty, if they have an interest in going into a certain area within the department for leadership, for experience and growth, and having the opportunities to go through trainings and work on a temporary basis in those areas to get familiar with them. And then the leadership component, which I think is undoubtedly probably the most significant, most important, is for us to be able to focus on developing our employees from day one, to focus on personal leadership initially, and then unit leadership, growth leadership, organizational leadership moving forward. And being able to have a formal program where we can keep track of that so we can help guide and develop them moving forward. I think that's a tremendous retention opportunity for us. Doesn't necessarily equate to dollars and cents, like a lot of people think money is everything. It isn't with this line of work. There's a lot of people that do it for the passion of helping others and helping those who can't help themselves. So by helping them be the best they can be, I think that program in itself is going to pay tremendous dividends. I think also from a retention standpoint, for us giving them the ability to have a good work-life balance, I think the wellness program, again, will help provide some of that. But I think as we look at this software that we recently purchased and employed, and we're asking to extend that for another year, that enables us to read the CAD data that we work off of, so we know we're staffing our streets and staffing the city appropriately, making sure we've identified those efficiencies so that our folks can also have some time to do what we call on-view work or proactive work that a lot of people really like to do. They don't want to just go to call for call. And we're looking at modeling, scheduling modeling. What does scheduling modeling look like? It looks like changing the status quo, right? We've been doing business for the same way for so many years now, and that's as a profession. And so we need to think, hey, how can we do things a little bit differently? How can we do things that other agencies aren't doing? And what can we provide to them that other agencies haven't thought about? So we're in that process right now. And I think for us moving forward, I think we're coming up with a lot of good ideas. I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing it right now, but I think moving forward, you'll probably hear about some really neat ideas in the next couple of months. Absolutely.
Not to keep beating the same drum, but that aviation unit provides opportunities for staff that are here and from a recruitment and a retention perspective, with the way that Chief has looked to staff the TFOs and things like that. It creates opportunities.
Yeah, one of the things with that is, I know our presentation last night talked about the number of positions. I mean, moving forward, we're going to have those full-time positions. My intent isn't for us to continue to add full-time positions to aviation, but to add part-time positions, meaning you have a patrol officer that works the street 3 days out of the week, and then that 4th day, they have a need or they have him or her scheduled to go and be the tactical flight officer. So it gives them the opportunity to go and work in the specialty at a different time. There are some organizations, some departments that operate under that model, and it is a huge win-win because they have that experience, they have that knowledge, but they also have that flexibility and fluidity between units in order to go and quote-unquote play, if you want, in the air unit for a shift and then go back to their normal duties. So we're going to be looking at that hybrid very, very seriously in employing such a model.
Well, I think that also increases communication on the ground units, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Being able to have, that communication style, because it is different, and being able to be able to have those attributes, to know what's actually going on, I think is important, so.
Right.
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
Good. All right. Fire and medical. We have, again, if this budget is adopted, it'll bring us to 270 FTEs, which is, since 2023 is net 30. So, again, we've made significant investments in fire, necessary investments in fire and medical. Total budget, $60.6 million, funded through general fund and user fees. Again, 85% of that budget would be personnel, 11% contractual, and then commodities account for 4%. And so with that, Chief Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Cartwright. Mayor, Council, good to see you again. Some of the highlights for our budget this year, and we want to thank you for those positions over the last few years. You did approve us to hire the 15 for Station 8 early, which was a huge win. It decreased our overtime. It allowed us to send some more folks to paramedic school, technical rescue training, hazmat training, so a win all the way around. But for this budget cycle, we got 9 new FTEs, which is, again, a step in the right direction. We continue to move there. The MR unit, which is a medical response unit, there are 40 hours. We have 2 of them, 40-hour positions. 8 till 5, 4 days, or 8 to 6, 4 days a week. And so they're not covered on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but they have proven to decrease the call volume in the south, which is one of our issues, is the reliability for our companies to get there, because call volume so high as they're not meeting that response time in their first 2 areas. So the MR units have shown that that has increased the reliability for them to get to the calls in the allotted amount of time. So the 9 folks, 8 will go to the MR unit, which 1932, which is at a Station 3 on Thunderbird and 83rd Avenue. We're going to have that 7-day coverage Monday through Sunday. So 4 people at a time, 10, 11 hours a day, still working up the schedule on that. The other 4 will be to create an MR unit at a Station 194, which is on Olive and 99th Avenue. That's one of our busiest companies, running over 400 calls a month, which is a lot in the fire service. So that's a kind of an incremental approach to try and take care of that issue, if you will, that we have in the south. So we're very excited about that. The other position is the training division chief, which is, that was a fixed term benefit position that you allowed us to have last year, which means we have to ask for it every year. That got, we're asking that to get turned into a full-time equivalent position, and that's for Hunter Clare, our division chief. Obviously, he does an amazing work for us, which bolsters up our training division, gives us a lot more capacity to do stuff like live fire training, which we haven't done in a long time and is required every year. With the new burn building that the mayor got us, that's something we're planning on for next year, is annual live fire training. The other training we don't do a lot of, or haven't done in a while, is night training, which is required. So with the increase in the training division, our plan moving forward is take care of that stuff. We did increase in CAD fees. They charge us per call. I think it's like $42.50. Surcharge went up to like $42.80, so a little higher. Plus an increase in call volume combines to increase the cost to pay Phoenix for dispatching us. The grip stick is Glendale Regional Public Safety Training Center. That's where we are a partner. For a long time, we paid a percentage of what the ongoing O&M costs were. They restructured that to do more like the RWC, where it depends on the number of users, which increases our percentage of what we owe. But we also do not have to pay for recruits to go to the academy. We worked a deal. As a partner, we were paying $4,500 for every recruit we sent. Plus, we had to send recruit training officers and mentors. So the other departments who were not partners had to pay the same thing. So we didn't see any benefit to being a partner, so we made an argument. They heard us, we restructured it. We added more money to the pot to pay for the academies, and now they don't charge us to send a recruit. So next academy class, we have 14 people going through, 14 firefighters. We're still in the selection process, and that won't cost us anything to send them as far as the academy class. We still got to pay, obviously, their salary and their personal protective equipment, but win-win for us, so that's the increase there. Training budget, that's a one-time ask, and that covers 5 different divisions that we have. So it'll be the ambulance division to cover the ambulance coders, to get their certifications, to train some more paramedics. 1240 is our training division. Like I said, we're going to increase training for live fire and night training. We do the new hire process, which costs money. We do promotional testing every year, which costs money. So that's just to cover that cost. And I think it's been on one-time increases over a few years now, right, Peter? So that's the increase in that, and then just the inflationary increases going forward. That's all I have. Unless you got questions?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, can you briefly describe like what the trigger points are when you guys go and decide that a new station is needed? You know, just with all the rapid growth to the north,
Yep.
just like I think we should understand a little bit more what the thought process is, you know, what the determination and when the determination to
I appreciate it. Mayor Beck, Councilman Edwards, there's 2 issues we have trying to solve. One was the call volume in the south where we need more vehicles, and the other is the growth in the north and when do you build a station. And we've been working pretty diligently on that the last couple of years with leadership, Travis and the other DCMs talking about that. And a lot of the trigger points for new stations lives in the development agreements. Saddleback Heights, we were just going through that the other day, and it talks about a temporary station, when that would go in, when we would need to start building the fire station depending on the number of homes that were going up. Same thing with Lake Pleasant Heights. They had a development agreement in there too. And those things change, and it has over the past. So Station 8 got funded. We're there now. Saddleback Heights is in talks about finding a location for us. They want to find 10 acres for a police fire substation. That's what Chief Interior was talking about. We were having conversations about that. And then we're looking at the PIC area with all the CIP stuff coming into PIC. We know we're going to need something there, so we've been talking with the leadership group on what's the timing on that. You know, we're also working with Chris Hawkins' group in planning, and then the engineering group with Mr. Curran, and everybody's talking now. This is the best collaboration I've seen since I've been here. It was just kind of shoot in the dark and see what happens, but a lot of conversations going on, and we're really excited about the direction everything's going, and it's just finding the funding and the timing and the opportunity, but we're moving in the right direction for sure. Appreciate it.
Does that also include like the northeast? Because, you know, with like Pulte Homes putting in a new development up near Sonora Mountain Ranch of another 250 to 300 homes slated to go in there real soon. Will you look at like your existing station there on Jomax to be able to cover that, or is there going to be a need to build another station?
We have, Mayor, Councilman Edwards, we have chatted about that one. I think that's an area of concern to me because 197 that sits on Jomax Road there, about 75th Avenue alignment, they have to go east to 67th, and that curves out into Phoenix, and it's about 5-minute travel time just to get to the entrance to Sonora Mountain Ranch. So we've been having discussions on what that looks like, whether it's something going across the wash or something coming south from the 303. It's definitely an issue that we're still looking for a solution for, but we want to be able to cover that for sure. No, thank you.
Please, go ahead.
Hi, Chief. Just one going back to you.
Police chief.
Yep. That's right. Police chief.
No
Correction.
problem.
Going back to the fact that now we have the RTCC, just wondering, we have the My Peoria app. So on the My Peoria app, we have the little button that sends us to a website outside of the app that says we want to report a crime. Is it possible that within the app, we could explore maybe putting a direct something that streams to the RTCC? Like if we have an accident on Peoria roads, a citizen can hit a button that says, I need to report an immediate accident?
I'd have to look into that to see if that was
Yeah.
possible.
Just tying together, the rapid response and everything to, if we have an accident, how fast can a citizen get a hold of somebody?
So, look, when we went through the Fuchsia components, and actually Henry and I saw this, when we talked to a couple different companies on this, one of the pieces was being able to, if somebody was calling 911 and going through this process, that you would literally be able to give access to the user's phone if they were actually filming something and that was specifically designed in the system for, and I don't know where that process is at. Obviously, we're still in its infancy, but it was specifically designed around, because our question was in a school. You've got all these cameras everywhere. How do you actually utilize them to be able to get officers on scene and give them live information? And that goes back to South Texas, whenever the shooting happened down there, being able to have access to the teacher's phone and those types of things. And obviously that didn't happen, but it was, that was like the wish, right? How do you actually solve that problem? And
Call the NSA?
Say again?
Is that the idea? Call the NSA?
No, the idea is, part of it was having an app already downloaded, being able to have teachers that could actually download that app and be able to have that, so they could actually be able to utilize that. So, that's something that's definitely a part of the conversation, so.
We definitely can look, we'll look into it. I mean, as I think we mentioned in, I think in the workshop, we mentioned we are going to RFP for our CRM here in the not-too-distant future. So we certainly can look at that angle, but we could also look at the functionality associated with the Fuchsia system to see if there's another avenue to get at both of those.
They have something
opportunities.
specifically for teachers now, and it could be probably adapted to what you're talking about.
I took a note. We'll follow through on that.
Mayor Beck, Councilmember Stokes, if I could just add to that. The RTCC does have the capability to get all 911 calls and to review all 911 calls as they're received by our communication center. So as they're listening into that and they have the location of where the accident is, they can just go right to that intersection, pull up the cameras, and literally be on it within seconds. So, and then from that point forward, they can then direct both fire and PD in terms of the appropriate response based on what they see, not just relying strictly on what the caller's information is.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Anything else for either chief? Good. Thank you. Thank you both.
All right, so moving on, and with all those investments and our ability to solve crime and and refer them, our presiding judge is here with us to talk about the effects on him. So currently, again, if this budget, assuming this budget is adopted, the municipal court would have 22 FTEs, and I did go back to 2023 and look to see what that looked like. And in 2023, the municipal court had 23 and a half FTEs, and so they're actually down 1.5 FTEs, but I'll have Judge Tatz address that. Their budget is $3.8 million funded through general fund and user fees. Again, 80% personnel, 19% contractual, and 1% commodity. With that, Judge Tatz.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cutright, and good evening, Mayor, good evening, council members. Pleasure to be here. I was told my time is proportionate to my budget, so I got about 15 seconds, and I'll get through this. No. So going in order, the pro tem judge hours. So that is a actual continuation and a little bit of an increase of what we currently have. We have 2 full-time judges, but often we have 3 dockets. So we bring in a judge on an hourly basis to cover that 3rd docket, also for training, vacations, other times judges are out. The pro tems can cover that. Our hourly rate is probably the lowest of any municipal court in the city, so this will allow us to bump that up to a competitive rate as well. So hopefully we can recruit some other good pro tem judges in the next fiscal year. It's a reclassification. The second one, we have 3 court security officers right now, all at the same level, reporting directly to the court administrator, and she does a great job overseeing them, but obviously that's not her forte, so we thought it would be a good idea, and actually we had an assessment who told us it would be a good idea to reclassify one of them to kind of be a lead, so they could make sure that the training is getting done, that the scheduling is getting done, that everything that needs to be done is there, and it can be kind of a more of a liaison between court administration and the security officers, just to make sure they're being as effective as they can. And then the last 2 positions I'm going to lump together, lead judicial assistant and judicial assistant. The lead judicial assistant is someone who is more directly involved in assisting the judge in the courtroom and doing more of the trial preparation and the courtroom type of things. The judicial assistant's more of the customer service side, dealing with the citizens who are coming in to deal with their traffic tickets, their cases, their restraining orders, things like that. And these are really a reaction to 1, an increase in filing that we have seen over the years, and 2, an anticipated increase in filing that we expect to see just based on increased police officers, increased prosecutors. So trying to be proactive, they all work very, very hard, and I would say that they're pretty well taxed to the limit at this point, so we really need a couple new positions to kind of make sure we can continue to do things effectively and efficiently. There's also some ideas that I have to kind of change operations in the year that I've been here, and one of the barriers to doing a couple of those things has been lack of staffing. We really don't see how we can spread them any thinner. This will allow us to hopefully take on some of those things. So, any questions? All right, thank you. Sure.
Instead of throwing my cookie. Just joking. So, question for you, just understanding how your department works, Judge Tatz. We talked extensively about technology and how it infiltrates and is necessary to be used to make more efficient. I've noticed I'm reading the review, reading the notes in the budget there. You have gone from paper warrants to e-warrants. How does, maybe this has happened obviously in the past, there's things I still have to learn. How does your department, municipal court, need technology to help process? Because we've got the real-time crime center. Do we need the real-time court center, figuratively speaking? What are we missing in your department, your world, that technology could help? Because as much as it's wonderful and it's terrible at the same time, too much technology, but could it benefit you, or are you're stocked at this point?
Mayor Beck, Councilmember Bullock, that's a great question. One of the things I know we looked at is maybe using artificial intelligence to eliminate some of the busy work that people have to do. We've been able to come up with or start utilizing e-citations, so rather than processing citations from the officers and have to manually enter them, we can bring them in through e-cites, but that's already happened. There are some other things that maybe AI could do, but we have barriers with doing that. We're kind of unique in that we have our city IT, but we also answer to the Supreme Court, and we use their systems for our case management, and they have to approve anything we do, and it just makes it really hard to coordinate those type of things. We do a lot of virtual court over there. We have a lot of people appear, not all for the better, to be honest, and that's one of the things I'd like to see is a little bit more in person. I'm kind of old school that way and believing that there's more of an effect in the court if someone's actually walking into the courtroom, but we do, in terms of access to justice, do some telephonic stuff, do some Zoom stuff, you know, not for the criminal trials and things like that, but some of the other things just that are more routine, just to get past to the next step. We're losing some things we could take advantage of by having some people come in earlier, and we're gonna be looking at doing that next year. So to answer your question, I don't know that there's a lot that we would be asking for from the digital side or virtual side in the future. It's probably gonna be more from the personnel side. Sure.
I will say that my experience with Judge Tatz in a previous life, he is very forward-thinking and leverages technology, and he's a breath of fresh air. He was referring to leveraging robotic process automation to see if we can offload some tasks from some of the staff and that, and he's open to considering all those things, and I just thank you for being who you are and being forward thinking.
Thanks.
So a couple things. Councilor Dunn asked me to, on the break, asked me to thank the efforts that you guys are all putting forth. I think I'm going to say this because I think all council members believe this, but I'm not going to speak for the rest of the council, but I believe that this is this is the truth. We all have a tremendous amount of faith in you guys, and it's incredible to see how you are with your men and women across, from the two of you specifically, and I've heard your reputation of just how you interact with people. I've seen it from you two firsthand, down to the booter, all the way to the brand new recruit, that you're showing up on a Sunday night and doing ride-alongs, and I've seen you firsthand and how you actually are giving that knowledge and actually pouring into other people. That is what is going to make the difference in saving lives long-term. And I think because the way that you both grew up in the systems and actually seeing that firsthand, it makes a difference in how you actually teach. And I would say that both of you are tremendous teachers in how you're actually doing this. I thank you from a lot of the council members up here, all of the council for what you guys are doing. I would ask one kind of question from both of your standpoints. And you just answered this, Judge, kind of with the staffing needs that you have. I believe the thought process is that we still have about 20 to 22, forget this year's budget, 20 to 22 officers that are still unfilled. Is that about correct?
We have 17 today. Out of those 17, we also have 10 positions where offers are out.
Okay.
So that means 7 are unaccounted for.
Okay.
However, there are 12 positions that are currently filled, but they're going through training.
Okay.
Or actually 18, excuse me, 12 with 6. Out of the 18, 6 will be graduating here, I think April 3rd. And then the other 12 will be going through all the training. So
in your belief,
they're just not on the street.
What is your goal for being fully staffed on all positions that are funded from previous budgets to now?
In terms of numbers?
Right. 6 months, 9 months?
I'm hoping by, I'll say probably a year from April 1st. So by April 1st of '26, I'm hoping to have it all staffed up.
Okay.
Including any overhires that I can glean from the system.
And that takes care of retirements and things like that at the same time?
Correct.
Okay. What about you, Chief?
Can you repeat the question again?
So do you, is fire fully staffed? What's our next recruit class look like? I mean, what needs do you guys have from a personnel standpoint that you, if you're not fully staffed, which I believe you are, and we've got guys in the academy and so on and so forth, it seems like it's a little bit easier to get firefighters, frankly, than it is police officers, especially with just kind of the environment of it. And you guys get to play with water and fire, so,
No
But
comment.
realistically, like, do you see recruitment issues coming up in the future or anything else like that?
Recruitment for fire is down, Mayor, but we still had 250 applicants. We got a really good pool. There's still a lot of folks that really want to do this job. So we're right in the middle of the process. We just finished our interviews. We selected 40 people to go to the Combine, which is a half-day skills course, leaderless group activities where they get evaluated. And out of that group, we select the folks going to the next academy, which starts in April. We'll hire them in April, starts late April. And we got 14 on the books. So there's 9 that if this budget passes, we'll get. We have try and get them in early, and then we have some retirees that are going, so 5 retirees, folks that have left. And then we'll evaluate the MR situation, how we're looking over this next year as far as call volume response times, and then if we need to adjust, we'll come back and ask for more. Still planning for the future in the north there with Station 10 and Saddleback Heights, see what the timing is on that, and Station 11 over at the PIC. Station 8 is ready to go as far as staffing goes. We've hired those people, we trained those people. It was great because when they got out of the academy, we could send more people to medic school. So we sent 9 people to medic school when those 15 got out of the academy. We saved some money on overtime. We were able to upstaff some vehicles because we had extra people during the day. So it's been a good year, a good learning experience, and I think we're looking good right now. We'll be back.
Okay, so 2 things. So 2 or 3 things that I'd like to see. One is, how do we, and I realize we're new to the RTCC at this point, how do we get fire integrated sooner rather than later? I mean, we saw it firsthand when we were there. All of us saw it. Car accident right there. I mean, it's, to me, that is a tablet in every fire truck or every captain or however you place it, to where what we're doing is we're actually driving that data so they can actually see that real time while it's actually happening, actually watch that video so they can start prepping mentally for the fight that they're getting into. I think that's a big deal. And I think that's an innovative thought process that we should be doing. You know, that time, those minutes, they save lives at that point. That's one. Two is equipment. I know equipment is a long-term, you know, we're constantly looking at this. Kevin's like this. His like chair like sinks down a little bit. I know that rescues as well as vehicles, you know, trying to get police vehicles are time and place out, right? You know, are we ordering ahead and then being able to say, are we ordering more rescues, knowing that we're going to have to replace those rescues, and if at that time, obviously, we could say, no, we only need 4, we don't need 6. Same thing with police vehicles and also motors, right? We talked about with some of the speeding and accidents. I'm kind of asking a dual question here. Do you feel like we're getting the vehicles that we need? And obviously, there's always, I mean, they're gonna, you know, I know what they're gonna say. They want to be part of the MORE program, right? You know, everybody always wants more. But the issue is you know, are we getting those on order? Because like right now, I know the rebreather or the rehab vehicle was like 18 months, right, from the time we ordered it. I know, you know, a couple months ago, we talked about this, vehicles are out, motors are out, those types of things, where they're just distance and time. So if we don't have those on order, what are we doing to change that thought process? And maybe that's not you guys, maybe that's you guys, but.
Mayor and Chief, we all work on, the Vehicle Replacement Committee is a very active committee that has membership from police, from fire, that looks very actively at a number of factors, you know, as far as determining life cycle associated with rescue units and engines, mileage, how much money you're putting into the maintenance each and every year, what is the expected life of the vehicle. And so we've been pretty proactive in trying to keep up with that vehicle replacement. A couple of years ago, we got the engines on a regular schedule of how many years, then how many years as primary, how many years in a reserve role, and then, you know, the full replacement. And so I think that's been working well. They've done some creative stuff as far as the rescue units in trying to extend the life by I think it's changing the chassis, keeping the body, and moving those forward. So, Chief Bernard.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Mayor, Council, that replacement fund was working great until the slowdown in all the parts came, and engines went from being built in 9 months to being built in 18 months and then 24 months. So we got a little behind, but we have 2 brand new pumpers in. We hired a contract mechanic to help get all that stuff wired up and make ready, we call it. But we have 14 vehicles coming in this year already. We got the 4 ambulances. We signed a promissory note, if you will, or just saying to get in line for the next one. So we're in line for 3 more, which we're not held accountable to. We can say, hey, we don't want them, and they'll just sell them to somebody else. So, but we got in line for that. We know if Saddleback comes online that we're going to have to order that truck within 24 months of that station being built. So we're in a better place knowing what we got, but we got a lot of stuff coming in, and we're looking pretty good right now. We have some old equipment out there that, because of the extension of the build time, they're kind of nickel and diming us on maintenance costs a little more. But to Kevin's point on the re-chassis for the rescues, it seemed like that wasn't as beneficial, according to my maintenance supervisor, not as cost effective as it would be just to lengthen the lifespan of the vehicle and then buy a brand new one at the end. Because once you put that box on it, then you're nickel and diming doors and latches and lights and then the wiring, and so it seemed more advantageous to just extend the life of the vehicle and then buy a new one at the end instead of re-chassising that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, it all went through that procurement, the vehicle replacement group. They talked about all that, so everybody's on board.
Okay, Chief?
Mayor, police vehicles are typically difficult to get in a timely fashion. Over the last probably last 5 to 7 years. The manufacturers will often respond to those departments that make the largest orders first and foremost, Chevy and Ford being the two. Historically, we have not used Dodge, but it's something we could look into as well. But more importantly, yeah, they typically don't hold up as well. But the reality is,
Teslas are going on for a discount.
yeah, Teslas are not an option. No, but if we can, you know, we do have a forecast, a calendar as to replacement vehicles, and maybe we can think about how we can order them 3-4 months in advance of what we would normally schedule, and that might help suit us out.
Are we, both from fire and police, are we grouping in with other departments or agencies around the valley to try to look at that?
And we, Mayor, Council, we do look at that. The group, we used to do that with Phoenix quite a bit. The specs seem to have changed per city, so sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can't. But there's a technology group, equipment group through the whole consortium, and they meet and talk about same type purchases like heart monitors and fire trucks and all that. So they discuss them. I don't think we've done one in quite some time, though.
Yeah, I mean, the state used to have a program through GSA, you know, back in the early 2000s. I don't know if they still do that anymore from that standpoint.
I remember that.
And everybody would go in and buy, you know, vehicles and kit and stuff like that together where, you know, the purchasing power goes dramatically up. Instead of just one city, you might be buying 50 vehicles a year instead of 2 for a police vehicle.
Yeah, get
or
ahead of the line.
buying multiple fire trucks. And even if it's a 10% discount, you know, it might be worth it. So I don't know. Okay.
Brian.
Councilor Dunn had a question, I think.
Actually, it is not more of a question. This is directed to Chief Interary. I wanted to compliment, actually, all of our departments in public safety and health have been working with our community very well. We always talk about the high price tag items, but the price that we put on the human interaction and community involvement is it's priceless. And so I was discussing the other day with our chief about an incident in Pine where we had an officer, Officer Faith, resolve an issue between our 2 residents, and there was a speeding issue. Chief, I don't know if you could just say a little bit about it or if it's even appropriate, but I just want to illustrate how hard you guys work all the time and how effective it is.
Mayor Beck, Councilmember Dunn. Yeah, I'll just touch on it real quick. It was identified as a neighborhood issue. I think several of us can relate to that when it comes to speeding vehicles. There was a perception of a member of the immediate community, immediate neighborhood, speeding throughout the neighborhood on a regular basis. There was frequent complaints. My staff deployed the typical resources, patrol, traffic enforcement, the radar trailer to see if we truly had an issue. Really with no positive outcome and some confrontations going on. Lieutenant Mike Faith took it upon himself. Out of the box, he reached out to both parties, invited them to a local coffee shop, sat down and talked about, hey, what's the real issue here? The subject that was believed to be speeding showed his Google map, or I don't know the software, but was able to show that his speeds were in fact within the speed limits as stated on the street, and that there really wasn't an issue, but maybe it was the fact that he had a certain look or certain type of vehicle that made it appear like he was driving faster, but he in fact wasn't. And there was some acknowledgement on the part of both parties that they could do better and they can have an open line of communication. And so Lieutenant Faith just, you know, showing that kind of initiative and placing the emphasis on community engagement and community involvement in a first person standpoint really demonstrated how powerful that could be in order to bring solutions to everyday problems.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's very much. That's the Peoria I love.
Love it.
Thank you.
Love it. Thank you.
To
Appreciate it.
Judge Tatz, I want to apologize on behalf of Mayor Beck and Chief Interary for the Tesla comment.
I didn't get it at a discount.
Oh, there you go.
Mayor, would you like to break or jump into CIP?
Yeah, let's do a 5-minute break. dot. Look at that, boom.
It was a 10-minute break at 6:07.
10-minute break at 6:35, is that what you
No,
said?
it was a 10-minute break at 6:11. I am.
Do you have a game to go to or something?
No, but if we screw this up today, we're gonna miss the game tomorrow.
Oh, well, why are you wasting time?
Mayor, Council, we're here to talk about the capital improvement program. We have about 65 slides. We're gonna move as quickly as we can. I'm dead serious. It's about 65 slides, but we broke it into about 6 sections, right? So we've got them in logical sequences based on council priorities. So my ask, just to help this efficiently move, is let us punch through the ones per section. So the first section up is gonna be public safety. We'll punch through those slides, hold any questions to the end, we'll answer those right away, and then we'll jump into the next section. Excellent. All right, if you listen quickly, we will be done soon. So we're off and running. Multi-purpose facility, if you recall, we came before council latter part of the year requesting to buy a building on 95th Avenue and Peoria, 81,000 square foot building. This particular slide does not summarize the land acquisition, but instead it summarizes the phased approach to building out the facility. And so in there, we're looking at a vehicle impound and physical evidence storage as the first ones up, tactical training and classroom space thereafter, forensic analysis and processing of vehicles after that. This particular item is $6.9 million. There was about $2 million that was carried forward from last year specifically to get those projects going. We had a great question from Councilmember Edwards. He was asking about what are we doing about police station planning. I will touch on the far north precinct station in a later slide, but we had a bit of a setback with a joint public safety building in North Point. We've decided to take that only to a fire station. When that decision was made to go Fire Station 8 only, the team came back, Chief Insurary worked with the architectural services team and said, hey, let's go ahead and expand Pinnacle Peak. The stubs and all the hooks in the facility already exist, but what you see here in the FY26 budget is $1.6 million for design, and then we'll be back for construction at about $9.5 million thereafter. This will be a 9,000 square foot addition to the facility. We'll house the officers we have, the officers we're planning for, and we'll serve kind of that center hub of the city really well. The next major police facility investment would be all the way in the north end of this city then with Saddleback Heights. I'll touch on this again in a second, but we're planning a 10-acre campus in Saddleback Heights. It will include a police station, it will include a fire station, and we're trying to reserve land specifically for a library facility up in that area. Speaking of fire stations, and Councilmember Edwards, you had asked a couple of different times of us to look, what are we doing about planning stations? What are we doing about pulling them forward? Probably the biggest thing that we've learned, and we're super mindful, and I was glad Chief Bernard brought it up, was we need to look out in the future and specifically reserve the property. And I say that because we had a site picked for this station and it didn't pan out. We were gonna do the joint public safety building. We had a very scenic piece of property. It was just gonna cost us $5 million to make it flat and accessible. So we had to bail on that idea. We will be locating this one kind of in the heart of North Point, off of Estancia Boulevard. Things are going well. The design is currently underway. We're set to break ground on this property in January of 26. It'll be a 14-month build schedule. So team's pretty good. This is the actual rendering of the building. So they've done a really good job from a schematic design standpoint. But this is that next evolution into North Peoria. As we look towards the PIC and we look to Saddleback, we are currently working on siting those 2 stations right now. So when the time comes, we're ready to move forward, pull that trigger and build. Touched on this last night at council with the update on the aviation unit. This is the purchase of a second Bell 505 helicopter. This is for procurement starting in FY26 for delivery in FY27. You see $3.8 million. I believe this is pretty well detailed out last night, but we're happy to answer any questions. And that kind of wraps the public safety section. So are there any questions, comments, anything we can answer in this section?
About what's on the ads. We want to do that at the end. You want to do that, Mayor, at the end? We'll talk about the ads that were on. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, sounds good.
You guys are doing,
No, there's just a public safety topic on there. We'll cover it at the end.
you guys are doing well in the first section. Good job. Off to water security. Big project here is reclaimed, keep it together. Reclaimed Project 2. As you know, we finished Reclaimed Project 1 this last year, starting to deliver reclaimed water from the Beardsley wastewater treatment facility to Paloma Park to start watering those fields with reclaimed water. Reclaimed Loop 2 will be great because it's going to connect the Beardsley plant with the Jomax plant. It's currently in design now. There will be some challenges in the design phase, but we really will see this project pick up speed this year. They got to finish the design through the BLM lands. They've got to do a jack and bore, which means they're going to drill a hole underneath the 303 to bring that water over. And they'll start constructing both on the west side and the east side simultaneously, meet in the middle. So a big heavy lift this year with construction on this particular project, but a key component of being able to convey reclaimed water throughout the city. The next three slides are going to touch on multiple well projects. And so when we talk about wells, we're not usually talking about our primary water source. This is usually focused on water redundancy and securing our water future in the event of any CAP allocation cuts. This particular slide, if you drive out on the 303 now and past this area, so Lake Pleasant, west of Lake Pleasant Parkway, you will see drill rigs out there now. They're both on the yellow rectangle, that's the Catholic Diocese. Council approved an agreement several months ago to acquire 2 sites there, and we're drilling a test well and a production well on their site. The rest of this project is really going to be the acquisition of 2 pieces of land from the State Land Trust to put in 2 more wells, as well as all the conveyance lines. So you're going to have water lines going along the cap. You're going to have water lines going in this new road called Ashler Hills, as well as 96th Avenue alignment. Property's being appraised now. We're shooting for a mid-August auction, and then we'll be able to start drilling those wells right after that. Good number to keep in the back of your head is a brand new well cost about $6 million. And so there's quite a bit of money that's been invested in this. The other thing that sits in this is on the top of the bluff, you see kind of a cylindrical green object. That is the Zone 5E, Zone 6E booster pump station. So as we pull water out of the ground, those pump stations are then the ways we either move water north, which is Zone 6E, or we move water south into 5E, which allows us to supplement our surface water should we have a cut in the cap. Second of the 3 well projects, these are really rehabs. So these are either going to be a combination of new wells, some replacement wells, some rehabilitation. There's always a well project going on somewhere in the city. This map calls out 83rd Northern, one is Sweetwater, there's one at the Stadium Complex, kind of filtered throughout the city. This year we're having $10.8 million, but you see if you look in the CIP runway, there's about $27 million in total programmed out for these particular wells. And then the third of the 3 well projects to highlight for you this evening is the West Agua Fria well project. So the 4 red dots are very similar to this CAP LPP well project. So there are aquifers that sit below the surface in this area. Sorry, you even got me at that. Sorry. Sorry about that. So in this particular one, it's just like the well project is at the CAP and LPP, but there's water in this area that runs right next to the Beardsley Canal. So the team has done sufficient studies here. We've picked 4 sites that we think work. The 2 east of Lake Pleasant Parkway, we need to go acquire land through state land. The 2 west of Loop 303, the 2 west of Loop 303 are currently in 2 areas that have open applications to the State Land Department. So we need to do a little bit of strategizing on how to acquire that land. One key note, the $12.2 million highlighted here is really for land planning and long lead material acquisition. It is not the entire cost of all those well projects. So as we're getting through that and targeting those out, we'll come back. This number will grow. A good rule of thumb, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is $6 million per new well all in. And so this 12 million is really just gonna find you the land, and it's probably gonna get you, the switch gear and the other things necessary to activate that well site. This is an interesting one. So one of the things that we do to provide water out to Quintero, again, huge leapfrog in our system. So there's a standalone water supply out there. There's and treatment. There's some unique solutions on the wastewater side. This particular project is about rehabilitation of existing raw water booster pump stations. So what we're doing is taking water straight out of the cap and delivering it in, really to water that golf course and other things. Those systems are nearly 2 decades old, and so this is an investment to rehab those systems. We do have a lot of conversations going on about here, whether it's water, wastewater, or underlying infrastructure. We're going to be having some more discussions internally as a team to figure out the best way to help service this area long-term. I'll mention it here, but it exists in a lot of different areas or programs. So CIP really stands up 2 things. You have both net new, and then you have these recurring programs. And I'll highlight several of the programs in each of the 6 areas that we talk about. So one of the key programs here is just on their wastewater systems. So we have to have, we have a lot of capital-like expenses that support repairs, maintenance, rehabs of facilities. So this year, we've targeted $4.3 million over the 10-year period. We've got about $4 million programmed each and every year. Each individual project that's called out, you see in the top right corner of this slide, that's where they'd land in your budget book, but there's a handful of projects specifically called out, and they sum total about $4 million. The last one we highlight, we've tried to really condense this slide deck, number 1, because we're trying to protect tomorrow's schedule, but number 2, we want to focus on 26, 27 projects, but this is one that we need to pause and talk about for a moment. Advanced water purification is the next evolution of water security. So for us, it was really about shoring up our water distribution, being able to pull groundwater out in the event of a cut to the surface water allocations. Then the next phase was really about maximizing our wastewater treatment plants and being able to convey that reclaimed water throughout the city. The next evolution of our water security is about taking reclaimed water and doing advanced water purification to convert it from reclaimed into potable water. Advanced water purification is newer, I want to say newer technology, but it's not something that's widely used domestically here. So it's very costly. When you're on the front side of that technology curve, it is very pricey. The team is doing an extensive study now. They've been looking at dozens of options of both technology, partnerships, non-partnerships. Do we go alone? If we go alone and we put it in our jurisdiction, where does it go? So a lot of discussions going on. That feasibility report will be coming to completion here very, very soon. The reason I spend all that time talking about that is you have a placeholder sitting in the far bookend of the CIP for $165 million. That doesn't even scratch the surface as to what this is going to cost. So I would estimate that that's probably 10 to 15% of what this might cost. You're probably going to be in the tune of $1.2 to $1.5 billion by the time we get done. That will be for the advanced water purification system as well as all the conveyance and other technologies that go with it. So you'll see in here a construction line of FY 33 to 35. You'll see a $165 million nut that's out there. Again, we're just highlighting the fact that to secure our water in the long term, this is the next evolution. We're going to have to build towards it, but we have to be talking about it now, a decade in advance, to find success. And with that, Mayor, happy to take any questions on water.
Thank you, Mayor. The reclaimed water that has now gone up to Paloma Park, so I've been asked about from West Wing, and just an education maybe. West Wing saying, will that eventually go over? Is it even cost effective to go over to provide reclaimed water for West Wing Park? And then simultaneously, I saw it'll eventually go all the way up into Vistancia. Will that, one back. There you go. Will that eventually provide, or is it cost effective to provide reclaimed water for Sunset Park up there in Vistancia?
Mayor, Councilmember Bullock, kind of the rule of thumb that Water Services has deployed is 10 acres is that threshold.
Okay.
So when we look at it, so if you're within a mile, 10 acres, we want to put reclaim to it. So specifically for West Wing, specifically for the Alora Vita neighborhood park, probably going to say no.
Okay.
Just simply, just having been at West Wing Park over the weekend, there's maybe 2 acres worth of grass there, and it's in a retention basin. When we look over at Vistancia area, the ALA park, the new community park or special use park that'll be there, it will be watered with reclaimed.
Okay.
But again, that standard rule applies. If we can get you within a mile of the line, we're gonna look for that extension. More than 10 acres is kind of that threshold.
Okay, I'll look at that, because I know that, the park right next to the Mountain Vista Clubhouse, the Sunset Park, I don't know if that's 10 acres or not. I had some people ask, we had our, excuse me, had our Park Fest there a couple weeks ago, and I had some people ask about that, so. Excuse me, that cookie, what was in that cookie? It's like matte mouth glue or something, but okay. All right, 10 acres, that, I want to be able to report back to them saying, here's the kind of the threshold, that's a great logic answer, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's okay.
Any other? We good?
Yeah, we're good.
Moving on. As Peter had mentioned earlier in his introductory slides, we've created a new category within the CIP, specifically to call out projects in the Peoria Innovation Core. And it's really for 2 reasons. We pride ourselves on being transparent, and we want to make sure that we're accurately and fully conveying the projects that are in that space, number 1. Number 2, from an accounting standpoint, we need to be able to balance these things out because we've got a very robust IGA with the state, and so we need to be able to make sure we're pointing them towards what the projects are projecting for, and that our team is held accountable to deliver cost-effective projects in a timely manner. I'm going to go through about 6 slides here. This one's really busy, and it's intentionally busy. The exhibit on the right side is the Peoria Innovation Core infrastructure map. There's a lot. That is a 20-year. That's the full tilt list of projects. It's every major arterial roadway. Under every roadway is a full utility system complement. So we highlight that simply to say there's a lot of things the team has planned. What we're going to talk about in the subsequent slides is the specific projects for what we call phase 1, or the things that are specifically programmed for kind of the 26, 27, 28 timeline. 2 things just to highlight inside of this slide. There is a large planning and entitlement effort going on. So Mr. Hawkes and the team in planning and community development are leading the zoning, the land planning and the eventual zoning effort, and we talked a little bit about that yesterday as well. That is funded through one-time funding. You saw that hit inside of Henry's administrative slides. There's an additional $1.7 million here to study the arterial roadway system, roadway alignments, widths, all of those things. Another key component of that study is to understand what properties will benefit when a traffic interchange is put in at 96th Avenue. There is not currently a bridge at 96th Avenue. We need to study that going over the 303 and how it will support the properties, because that's part of the funding mechanism we're going to use to reimburse for what will be a very, very costly project. But I want to highlight the 3 or 4 major projects that we're looking for in 26, 27, 28 window. The first of which is Lake Pleasant Parkway. Lake Pleasant Parkway stretching from the 303 just over the CAP. And so this will connect through Core 2, connecting to Core 3. It will deliver one of every type of wet utility that we service. So we'll have reclaimed water, we'll have potable water, we'll have a sewer line. We'll pick it up off of the south side of 303, bring it under the 303, under the canal. You will have a new bridge that goes in. So ultimately, we will not widen the bridge we have. We will build a bridge next to it. You will use 2 bridges, one northbound, one southbound. So that's this project. There will be a signalized intersection at the midpoint between the 303 and the CAP. We call that Ashler Hills. So there'll be a full signalized intersection, allows you to go east or west. And then you see a small signal right at the CAP that is specifically for the CAP maintenance trucks. They need a vehicle to get through. That was a trade-off we made instead of having to build a bridge 14 feet over the canal. So we were going to have to build one 14 foot over the canal so they could drive under it. The team worked with them very closely. They're going to allow us to do one at grade, which allows us to preserve land, reduce costs, but all they needed was a maintenance signal. So we figured that was a good trade-off. The next project is Ashler Hills. Ashler Hills will extend in this particular application from Lake Pleasant Parkway west. If you know the area, you're gonna drop down the bluff. It's probably about a 50-foot drop, and it will tie into 96th Avenue. It will also house some of the water lines for the wells that we're building out there. But this will include water, wastewater, reclaimed water, as well as dry utilities, and will help service the areas of Core 2, which we hope to see some of the first lands come to market as part of our deal with state land. Another big ticket item that we think is important is the parcel that it sits kind of just across the street from Paloma Park. So it'd be the northwest corner of Dixoletta and LPP, or I guess the southwest corner of 303 and Lake Pleasant Parkway. This will drop a signal about a half-mile south of the freeway in order to have clean movement in and out of what we plan to be a large retail center. Again, this is all part of Core 1, state land property, so we're trying to entice people to put in an application, but we've already contemplated the proper location to put a signalized intersection, so we're thinking ahead so we don't have traffic issues. This particular one is 96th Avenue. We need 96th Avenue here for a couple of reasons. We'll build some road, but only when it's necessary. But we need this right away in these construction projects in early 26, 27 to focus on a sewer line. So the way we're gonna feed the sewer from this property, it's actually gonna go west down Ashler Hills, south down 96th Avenue, under the freeway, drop about 4 miles and tie into Lone Mountain. We'll see that on the next slide. The date here for land acquisition is not correct. It's in design now. Land will be acquired in 26. The plan is to build this in 27, no later than 28. The road will probably come in 30. One thing I didn't highlight, but I do want to drive home. We've had teams working on this since the day we signed the IGA. All of the roadway projects I just described to you are probably 80% designed. They will be fully designed by the end of April. We'll be focusing on land acquisition, and we'll be ready to start construction on these projects. The last date I saw was August 7th. And so the team has done a very effective job of meeting our obligations in the IGA with state land to bring these properties to market. The last one I'll highlight real quick is just the sewer solution. So coming south out of Core 2, as I mentioned a second ago, sewer line will come down 96th Avenue alignment. It will come all the way down under the freeway, all the way down past Smartopia or the Peoria Lakes property, and it will intersect with Lone Mountain. The star you see there is a proposed location for a lift station because the topography is a bit different. We'll free flow, gravity feed down to this location. We'll pick it up with a lift station there, lift it up to Lake Pleasant Parkway, and then it'll gravity feed all the way down to the Beardsley wastewater reclamation facility, which is like 111th and Beardsley or something like that. And that summarizes the projects for the Peoria Innovation Core in this first phase. Any questions we can answer?
Thank you.
You guys are on point today.
Did you want to talk about the borders that were already in the 303?
Parks. Sorry, you got a question on the previous?
Just,
Please.
At what, I mean, obviously it's a public meeting, at what point can I start talking about this on my messaging and my communications to my constituents, these types of slides and this information?
After it passes?
I think you could, assuming that gets you to a yes, then we'll say now. No, I would say in terms of talking about the planned projects, because it's inside of the IGA that we've already done, I would say it's reasonably safe to start saying the city's thinking ahead and planning well in advance. And then depending on how you want to vote, you can convey that. I mean, ultimately, we're planning these things to execute, and we hope that we've demonstrated and been transparent in our work, that we get a thumbs up from all of you and we can move forward.
Do you mind going back to the just once, you had a couple slides where you had all the lights for the pick, very first one?
That crazy one?
It's a lot. I mean, to me, that is a powerful slide kind of showing what the future is. And it's a lot of work.
If we are blessed to have a team of professionals who think ahead, who plan ahead, who pride themselves on not having intersections that are causing you grief the way other jurisdictions have them. They do a phenomenal job with it. They think well ahead. They work very well together. This project, they are killing themselves because they see this as Travis said something earlier. He said it last night to you, to the council, which was you delivered 2 generational projects in 15 months with the RTCC and the aviation unit. Henry touched on ERP, generational project that you're working on. This is 2 generations of projects. And so I think the team has found great pride in that, and they want to work hard to deliver something that you guys are proud of and equally delivers for our community. So they're working diligently to make this happen.
I think this is a slide that needs to be used more often. I mean, it really does show all the effort of everybody. I mean, this is not one person. This is everybody on board. It's pretty amazing.
This is teams of people, and to think that we went from, guys, here's a crazy idea, to you will have completed drawings by April and they're ready to break ground on August 7th. It's a city not working like a city. It's an impressive thing to see, and we're deeply blessed to have the team we have.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's my plug, because tomorrow I'm going to tell them they're late on everything, so.
I think you can show it. I think you can start showing it.
Okay.
Especially that slide. Why wait? Yeah.
We good?
You're good.
You guys good? We set a sidebar, but we're okay. Okay, as long as you're back on track, because
Not guilty.
And Cookie's still dealing with that.
we're running about 65 seconds behind, so we need to get.
You got to talk faster, right?
I wanted to bring this slide up from last year because Kevin eloquently delivered a message last year that clearly was not understood by everybody, and you folks aside. We heard a comment last night in the council, and I want to drive it home because we put some subtleties in the CIP to drive this. That constant notion of defunding Paloma, the constant notion of defunding neighborhood parks. And so I just wanted to drop this slide in here again, because as we said last year, this is straight out of the opening from last year's presentation. Nothing was defunded. What we did is we shifted from the city incurring debt to build parks to putting them back to developer responsibility. The only reason I highlight this tonight, well, number one, I just wanted to say it, but number two is inside of your CIP book, you will see neighborhood parks with $0 associated with them. And the reason we did that was twofold. Number one, we wanted to highlight that those neighborhood parks are going to be delivered. Number two, we needed a vehicle to attach the operating expenses once the parks are dedicated. So not shown on this slide is the Vistancia 5 North ALA Special Use Park that Kevin touched on earlier. It's in construction. It will be dedicated and go into operations in FY26. What you have currently in design and going into construction in FY26 is both the Alora Vita and Mystic Parks. So we're on second or third drawing reviews on those parks. So it won't be long before they have permits in hand. They will start construction. They will get dedicated in FY27. So you'll see the operating expenses for those to come through. The North Point Vistancia Park, it will trail a little bit, partly because we took 2.5 acres from the park to put a fire station, and there is no clear line of sight to the adjacent school. We're working with PUSD on what that plan looks like. So we're not quite certain on when that park will go, but I just wanted to highlight, if you're wondering why there's projects in there at $0, it's because we needed the conveyance method for the operations, and we wanted you to be able to go back to your constituents and say, we're still delivering the parks that we're committed to, okay? Sports complex improvements, so there's always a line item that sits inside of the CIP specific to our contractual obligations to the teams. We do have projects geared up for each of the next 3 years, and most notably in FY26, there's stadium club seating improvements planned. There's a modernization of the stadium facade that's planned, and additionally, the right field bleacher social connections is in design. And so there's a lot of great activities going on for the ballpark. Good to see this going on, and I think it complements some of the other activities we have going in this space really, really well. I mentioned earlier that we highlight programs, so we saw the wastewater program. As Chris Calcaterra is highlighted here before. We use a park condition index to evaluate every single park every single year. That evaluation then lends to refresh programs. The refresh programs that in the projects that are slated for 26 are highlighted here. You've got some basketball and tennis court replacements, some playground refurbishments, some other dog park and park ramada replacements that are happening, and you can see the dollar values associated with each. The projects are clearly delineated within the CIP book. In addition to the refresh program that comes out of the park condition index, we have a refurbishment in projects that come out of it. So there's about $1.5 million allocated in the CIP, specific this year around light poles, around LED light upgrades, park painting, and then at the community park, there's a specific HVAC replacement activities going on. With that, Mayor, happy to take any questions.
Okay.
Fantabulous. Operational facilities, innovative government, handful of things to highlight here. As Peter had said, there's a significant rollover of projects, of funds, and this is in that bucket. So I think he highlighted 6 projects, $225 million, if I caught that right. Fleet building was one that, Mayor, you challenged the team to come back and look at the overall spend. They really did. They worked hard to bring this in. We just got our update today. It's in work, it's going well. I think the team will deliver a fantastic project. It's tight over there now. You're still operating a building while you're taking one down. They're making do, but at the end of the day, they'll have an excellent fleet building when it's done. FY26 is where we're showing the approximately $26 million to spend, and we're excited to get to that completion. Also, you have the municipal front yard. I guess we call it the complex entry plaza. So we see the roof project is done. I came back from travel last week, and the building, as Henry said, we got our braces off, meaning the scaffolding came down from around the building. It looked a little strange. I think the fencing is nearing completion. So as that's wrapping, we're now going to start gearing towards these other projects, the next 2 slides. But this morning we were advised that the front yard will really start construction by July, will be done by Christmas, is kind of the timeline. I think the final design here is going to look fantastic. It's going to be a great facelift.
Right in time for a call.
Yep. We had that conversation too. Well, that'll come up. Give me one more slide. Brisket by Christmas in the front yard at that. So City Hall renovations, I think it was 2 council meetings ago, there was a flyaway video of the reno plan. So the team is going in. As the front yard's being done, this will also be happening in the same timeline. Team's forecasting kind of a June start. So I think as you break for summer break, they'll come in and start doing demo and doing what they need to do. They're projecting an early 2026 completion for the project. And again, I think we've highlighted this project pretty well. The funds specifically called out here is the additional funds needed in order to bring the project to completion, because there are some rollover funds from the previous fiscal year. Speaking of Brisket by Christmas, next Tuesday morning, there's an invite-only groundbreaking ceremony for this property. The Caldwell County Barbecue site will kick that off. Fantastic. A lot of great work has gone into this project. So we're going to do the groundbreaking ceremony on 4/1. A little later in the month, we'll mobilize, and they'll start construction on the site. The goal is to deliver the building to the tenant by December. And then they need about a month for their upfit. So we're targeting kind of early 2026. So I'd say the end of January 2026 opening. So that's fantastic. Just behind that is the Jefferson House. So we had a bit of a slower start when we started on this. We've concluded that buying shipping containers and building them out for restaurants and retail space was cost prohibitive. Secondly, we had some programming, meaning we were trying to fit too much stuff inside of our budget. So we had some rework that went through. I feel very, very comfortable that both the future tenant and our architectural services team have now reconciled both those issues. We still have a building that has the same look and feel and kind of vibe, but through some alternative construction methods that brought the cost down. I think we balanced out the programming. They're currently going through some intensive schematic design sessions, so they're doing like 4-hour blocks. They did one last week, they're doing one this week. That project is probably 4 to 6 months behind the Caldwell. So if we're looking at a January opening for the Caldwell, I'm going to say a Memorial Day kind of opening for the Jefferson House is what we're targeting. But all in all, it's trending in the right direction. I think our last two to go here. This one, just highlighting the spend for the grant we received. This is the pedestrian bridge over Grand. If you recall, we applied for and received a grant for kind of the study and schematic design of this. There's an open debate of exactly where the bridge should go. Should it go at 87th? Should it go at 83rd? We'll get that out of this study. We'll get the other dynamics that fit out. What's it going to take to get over the railway? What's it going to take? There's a lot of dynamics, and then there's a lot of little nuances with land planning that have to be considered. So we'll get through all of that. You'll notice in the slide that the design, the land acquisition, and the construction is in the out years. That is solely because we have not problem solved where the funding is going to come from to construct this thing. So I think as we're getting the study going, we'll start thinking about and looking for additional grant dollars and other safety corridor things in order to find funds to bring this project to reality. And the last one on the list is the schoolhouse renovation. We were happy to hear this morning in our update that we have received the study that was completed, the analysis of what to do and the options to go for. We've really broken that into two things: internal renovation and maximize the floor space that's available to us. And secondly, rather than put restrooms inside of this facility, I think the team's recommending some restroom facilities outside, what they call it a detached annex or items. They had some nifty name that meant outhouse, I think. And so what we're looking for is 700 square foot restroom facilities on the outside, which affords us the ability to not rob from the limited floor space we have here. The good thing is the team says those options fit within the prescribed budget, so we feel pretty comfortable we're going to get there. Mayor, council, any questions?
Councilor Bullock?
I'll talk quickly. I was speaking with Superintendent Summers over at PUSD about a month ago. He asked about, I had no answer for him, the opportunity for a bus depot, a bus station up further for school buses up further close to the Vistancia area, because it's taking 45 minutes just to get up there. Has there ever been any talk about that, either sharing a building, anything of that sort, to try and help minimize that incredible drive every morning to and from just to get there and back?
Mayor Beck, Councilmember Bullock, our solid waste drivers feel that pain as well, so we understand that. We've been trying to look for some solutions for them. The most notable solution that we've heard proposed thus far is a property that sits just south of the Beardsley Canal off of El Mirage. So if you picture where El Mirage dead ends at the southeast corner of Trilogy, just on the opposite side of the canal, there's a piece of property right there that has been contemplated for that exact thing. That's probably the best one I've heard, but we have ongoing conversations and set quarterly meetings with Dr. Somers, and so we'll be happy to add that one in and help them problem solve that. We had a good meeting with them, I'll say 3 weeks ago, where we have been collectively encouraging creative solutions to problems, and so we will seek to help them solve that one as well. In the interest of time, I'm going to combine drainage and streets because I don't think anybody's got any questions on drainage, but it's an important facet of what we do for a living. So please hold all your drainage questions until we finish the streets section. We're not allowed to applaud in here. 3 drainage projects that I think are important to note. The first of which is, this is a property the city acquired from Van Trust as part of the Peoria Logistics Park overall acquisition from Rovey Farms. Originally when this deal, and we want to highlight a couple things because there are flooding issues in this particular area, this regional drainage basin. The study is nearing completion, but this basin will allow us to solve some of those issues. One of the things specifically highlighted in our purchase and sale agreement for this land was our ability to use a portion of this property for vehicle impound yard for police, but the acquisition of the facility on 95th Avenue freed up about 5 acres of land here. We have a meeting with them next week. We're going to carve out about 5 or 6 acres here, and we're probably going to develop it for industrial or other applications that mimic the other surrounding areas. So we could turn it into an economic development area for 5 acres, use the balance to solve the regional drainage issue. We'll highlight the $7.6 million not only includes the build-out, the finishing of the study, the build-out of the drainage basin, but also the half-street improvements that are required of us on Golden Lane, as well as some minor improvements on 75th Avenue. And please note in the parentheses there, about $5 million of that budget is coming from the flood district. So that's great for us. Typically would not call out this project because it's so far in the future, but did want to highlight one component of it. So there is a significant flooding issue, and let me orientate you, sorry, Peoria and 83rd Avenue and the confluence of like the Grand, that whole area there. The team did a really good job of working with the landowner, and we acquired the property essentially at 83rd Grand and Peoria. There's that billboard that sits on the corner there. We've now acquired that property that we're going to be able to use to build a drainage basin. So we're highlighting it there just to say we've acquired that land, so we've at least solved one of the most difficult things, which is land acquisition. We have programmed, I think, 400 grand, we heard the team, to go do some one-time cleanup of the property. But as we finish this study in the summer of 25, we might be looking to pull this project left on the schedule, depending on what the funding profile looks like and what the study does tell us. And then lastly, I'll just highlight again programs. One of the complaints we get, especially after monsoons, is drainage issues, things backing up. There's debris in these very drainage basins, things like that. So we operate both programs and do individual projects. So there's just a handful of projects here in Fletcher Heights and in Deer Village Park where we're in there doing specific things this year. Just wanted to highlight those because again, I give the team a hard time about drainage projects all the time, but it is an important part. It's something we overlook a lot, being in the desert, but we all complain about it when the water doesn't flow when it rains. So, as we transition into streets and traffic signals, I do want to acknowledge Councilmember Edwards has brought, I want to say, a good half dozen projects from his district saying, hey, what can we do to look at some of these? As that part of the city continues to grow, we're seeing some constraints. We have some areas that aren't built out. So we have acknowledged those. We are going to look for opportunities to move those where we can. I will touch on a couple of them in this presentation. The first one I'm going to highlight is both a significant drainage issue, but also a street project. If you have not been on 67th Avenue, south of Happy Valley recently, I would encourage you not to go there to look at it. Just take our word for it. This thing's going to be a hot mess for an extended period of time. We are currently doing utility relocations in 67th Avenue right now. And quite honestly, there's one of every type of utility in that road, including a temperamental 48-inch diameter water line that belongs to Glendale running right down the middle of the road. And so we just have a lot of things that have to be planned for. But following the relocation of utilities, we're going to get into a 2-year-long construction project that's going to start in April. We have to put a nearly 10-foot diameter storm drain in Hatfield Road, which runs on the south side of CCV, and convey a significant amount of Phoenix stormwater that comes through Glendale to get to us. It's a really oddball situation, but we need to convey it to the river. And so it's going to be a mess here for quite a while. Just need to make sure that you folks are aware it's going to be a mess. You're going to get complaints. There'll be a hotline like every major project has. We'll be working with the contractor. One specific thing the team wanted to highlight, though, is a disruption that will occur in the New River Trail. There is a section of New River Trail, I want to say from Williams to Happy Valley Road, that will be disrupted. And so the team is trying to problem solve on how we can get a solution to keep the trail open during periods, but there will be a section in time when that trail has to be closed. Another significant regional project that's on the radar is Northern Parkway. So this one's from Agua Fria to 91st Avenue, long stretch of road. What's in the budget this year is our final obligation payment to the project of $1.5 million. But we can say specifically that some projects will start this year. So late 2025, the eastern end of this project. So I want to say the project ends like 88th or something to that extent. The eastern end of the project will start this year. There are issues on the western end. There's jurisdictional issues. We're having trouble with land acquisition with some tribal lands and other things, so those got to be worked through. And then we ask the difficult question, because they are going to build a diverging diamond intersection under the Loop 101 at some point. So if you're not familiar with the diverging diamond, it's what goes over top of the I-17 at Happy Valley, right? They weird crisscross. They're going to put one of those under the Loop 101. It's going to be an adventure. They haven't figured it out yet in terms of timing, so that's out there. But just know this intersection is already a challenge. When we start this work, I think we're going to have some struggles at at Park West, and how we're going to navigate that. It's going to be a difficult time. We just need to flag it. We need to communicate, make sure everybody's aware of it.
Are they gonna have to widen the bridge area to do that?
So they really don't want to. So they spent all the money on the north end, on the far west end in other jurisdictions. So by the time they've gotten to us, we've hit a lot of budget constraints. And so our traffic engineer is working diligently and imploring the project team to try to widen as much as possible. I'm afraid there's not gonna be as much widening as we'd like to see. The congestion there is still gonna remain an issue, I'm afraid. Another significant regional project here is El Mirage. So El Mirage Road, the traffic interchange coming north at Loop 303 is non-existent, right? It dead ends. You've seen a little bit of work going there now. So there's a project in the county that's developing just south of the substation. That is not related to this project. But what is happening in this project is a design concept report, which is set to be delivered fall of 2025, design and right-of-way acquisition in FY26, construction in FY27 and 28. This is a Prop 400, 479 project, has regional significance, and is important to us because helping to move traffic safely in and out of the 3 master plan communities, Vistancia, Lake Pleasant Heights, Saddleback Heights, offering a 4th entry point into the communities is huge. That's one. Number 2, until ADOT and Surprise can figure out 163rd Avenue and Grand, Happy Valley and Vistancia is getting crushed. And so getting this in will help alleviate that. Wholly not in our jurisdiction, but this is important to us because it affects our citizens. One key component to this is the blending of revenue, of funds to support this. So you have some money from us, you got some impact fees, I think you got some Prop 400, $479. You also have a contribution from Vistancia, because Vistancia had the obligation to build the crossing over the Beardsley Canal and a half-street improvement in front of that bus depot that we were just talking about. So if you look on this map where it says Joe Max Road up there, there's a little sliver of land just below the road. That's what, the idea where they're talking about a bus depot for PUSD. But, so the blended stream will come, but this will allow you to connect all the way from the 303 all the way to the southeast corner of Trilogy. Other regional significance projects, Happy Valley Vistancia, this is a big ticket item. This intersection is currently failing. If you drive through here on a daily basis, it is nothing short of a hot mess. Starting in June, July timeframe, we will launch the interim improvements. So by interim improvements, I mean we're going to put dual lefts from Happy Valley to Happy Valley, which is odd because you should never have to turn left to stay on the same street. And then we'll put dual lefts from Happy Valley to northbound Vistancia. That'll help bridge the gap. We'll get some of that queuing solved. The team's done a lot with our dynamic signals, but it hasn't been enough. By switching that queuing around, we should be able to move more vehicles. That's good, but this is the final solution. So you have a DCR that's underway now. You have a project that we're really leaning on the team to pull forward. So you're gonna have design and land acquisition in early 26. I think we'll have the land acquired most likely by this time in 26, and then we'll start construction. We know that this is very high commodity property within the North Peoria Gateway, and so we'll be working with whoever successfully wins those auctions to bring this to completion. And a key component of that, as Dan Nissen reminded me this morning, was the importance. We're gonna have to build a temporary road, kind of in that where it says realignment on the paper. We're gonna have to put a temporary road through the desert there, so that way we can continue to travel through while they're realigning the intersection. It's a very costly, significant project, but one that we know is desperately needed. In fact, this should have probably been delivered a couple of years ago. Staying up in that area, a project that was brought to council through public comment, probably about 4 months ago. We had a compassion delivery of a need in this area. We know there's been multiple accidents, some injury, even a fatality. There was a signal planned a decade from now, but ultimately the team came back and said the way to solve this right now is with a traffic circle. So the design is currently underway. In fact, it's just getting started, but the goal is to get that design done, right away acquired ASAP, and the plan is to deliver this in fiscal year 26 and or sooner. So this is an important improvement to get there. Want to highlight this one. This is an interesting one. We got called over to a meeting with Surprise, and Surprise was trying to problem solve how to get people into their city. They highlighted an issue. If you might recall, several years ago, there was a shooting at 163rd and Grand. They had to divert all traffic through Happy Valley to get people into the eastern end of their city. And at that point, they realized how significant of a problem they had. There was no other way into the city. So they came to us, said, hey, we need some help figuring this thing out. We are nearing the completion of an IGA negotiation, intergovernmental agreement negotiation with them, where they will lead the design effort and the construction effort to a City of Peoria design standard. They will put up $6 million. We will put up the delta to build this roadway, connecting what is currently a dead end at 126th Avenue to what will be the new termination point at Dysart. Right, and you'll see the budget for us is slightly more, our contribution to build the road is really not a ton. Most of our contribution here, we need to pay some money to extend a water line, and we need to extend the traffic signal interconnect out that way. That's really not on them, right? All they really need is the roadway. It's not fair to strap them with those costs. So their $6 million is going to go to the roadway. We'll have some additional costs for water and traffic signal interconnects. This project we've touched on in council more than once, but this is Westward Skies out of 5 North, southbound leg to divert traffic out of the commercial core to Vistancia Boulevard, so we're not putting vehicle traffic generated by 5 North past the school. Plus, we like the idea of a secondary pathway out past ALA. So if you might recall, we pulled design money forward. We're working on getting that contract issued. This is actual land acquisition, final design land acquisition construction of the project. You might recall that we have a partial reimbursement from the state for this in our agreement in North Peoria Gateway pre-annexation and development agreement. We had a reimbursement mechanism for $3 million for the roadway. I do want to highlight, we are going to design the road, but we're going to sit tight to see what happens with the land sale, because there is an application for this land currently open with the state. So we want to wait to see how that land transaction goes. It might behoove us just to let whoever buys the land to build the road. It might behoove us to pull forward and let us build it. I think we just need to get the design done, park it, see what happens with that transaction, and then pull the trigger on construction. This is a great one. I'm really proud of the team for staying dogged on this one. If you might recall, there was a fatal auto accident, I believe, on Sonoran Mountain Ranch Parkway back in 2017, which blocked all access in and out of Sonoran Mountain Ranch. At that point, they started to have conversations about emergency access road. And for 4 years, we've argued and pointed and looked back and forth, and finally, I'll applaud Jeff Curran, went and sat down with them, had the conversation, figured it out, and now we're off and running. Team's going to finish design, we're going to finish construction, and what you're going to get here is a gate across an emergency fire road. It's got a knock box on it, so if we need to get through, fire can go up, they can unlock the gate, they can get the trucks through and access the property through in other ways. So this is fantastic and just speaks to the tenacity that the team is putting forth to make sure some of these long-standing projects get done. A project that's near and dear to me because I live on this road and I'm tired of this, so I'm happy to see it moving. This is a small section of Joe Max, which runs from 75th Avenue to Alora Vita, or the 72nd Drive. Alora Vita, as they've built out Alora Vita South, they have fully widened all of their half-street improvements from about 80th Avenue, really from Rock Springs Wash, all the way down to this area. The city has the responsibility to finish this thing off. The design is done, land acquisition is nearing completion. This thing will go to construction this year. It will include a signalized intersection at 75th Avenue. So some might say, why are we signalizing 75th Avenue and not 72nd Drive, which feeds into Alora Vita, the north side? The traffic studies show there's more movements at 75th Avenue, number one. Number two, we're trying to direct pedestrian crossings to 75th because this is where the new river trail comes through. And so with that, it just made sense to put the signal here. If other signals are warranted, we will put other signals in. I will highlight while I'm here, we are going to go back and talk to Pulte, who is the developer on the last west section from kind of where it says Joe Max here to 83rd. That section of roadway will be the last section to be done. We're going to ask them to pull that forward. We know that the future traffic signal, Henry's traffic signal, will be going in FY26 as well. Sorry. This is an out project. I debated on whether or not to include this inside of the presentation, but I wanted to save all the staff 17 more emails, so we're including this one in to highlight. There is a challenge in this section of Pinnacle Peak. So from Lake Pleasant Parkway to 107th Avenue, this road isn't finished. It's a connection of odd federal patent easements. We've got involved in a couple of situations out there, whether it's dust. The team did some chip sealing out there just recently, so thank you to Public Works team for getting that done. Code compliance has gone out and done some work to make sure there's proper access to all the residential properties, but this particular project would worry about land acquisition, would worry about full design, and make the connection of Pinnacle Peak, which is an important element of our circulation plan. But anytime you do work in these areas of federal patent easements, it raises some angst with some of the community members who don't necessarily want these roads finished where others do. And so it'll be a bit of a challenge. We've highlighted a ton of programs, and we know that the next two programs get a lot of attention. The first one being the pavement preservation and pavement rehabilitation program. There's a whole host of projects here. You can scour through and find the ones you're most interested in, but we know we have the pavement index that gets checked on every year. The team then plans the projects according to that. This is the list of where we'll be, and then I feel like every Friday we get an updated email saying this neighborhood will be disrupted for a week, and then our roads will be good. And then another key program, and it seems that we spend this money as quickly as we go, so we've programmed a lot of ADA projects. This is really around going in and reworking sidewalks and ADA compliant ramps. Here's the list of FY26 projects, but we program $2 million in and we spend $2 million each and every year. One that we like to talk about and just highlight, our traffic team does a phenomenal job. If you drive in our city versus some of our neighboring cities, our traffic, intelligent traffic system is fantastic. We invest a lot of time and effort to get there. I think another key component thinking through the RTCC is all of our traffic cameras are connected into the RTCC, so it really helps with the deployment of those assets. So these are the signals and the various improvements that will be made throughout the city. Over the next couple of years, the status in the middle will give you the design and the construction window, some of which will be coming for FY26 and a couple in FY27, FY28. And then last but not least, community works programs. These are a lot of smaller projects being addressed by development engineering. They include various storm damage, signage, bike lanes, wall painting. These are things we get a lot of complaints through the app, a lot of things that could land with council members. So this is a great program to keep going, just to keep projects done. With that, Mayor, happy to take any questions on these or any other slides.
Can we go back to the northern slide?
Yeah.
We'll sit for a second. So because of this construction, then it's gonna, whether it's gonna be widened or whatever the situation is, have we had any conversations with the city of Glendale about trying to see if they would actually put money into this at all? Or?
So all jurisdictions associated with this ponied in onto an IGA, and so there's been lots of money put in for many, many years.
Obviously, they're running out of money at this later date because they've spent so much money on everything else.
Yeah, they built that sweet bridge that comes down by the
Yeah.
base, and so as you get
Went way over budget on it, obviously.
100%.
So I guess the question is because of that, do we go back to Glendale? Do we look at other?
We have posed questions back, and it's gone back and forth many, many times. We can do it again. More than happy to have the conversation. I think the likelihood is, given the fact that it's a MAG, those conversations might happen with Glendale, they run through MAG because it's a project orchestrated by them. We'll pose the question. Our traffic engineer is passionately pleading to open, to forego some of the bike lanes in a couple of areas to put some additional lanes in. So we're making a lower cost proposal to them now. And I'll tell you, Brandon Forey is passionately pleading with them. He's on vacation, and we got an email from him yesterday, literally with his update to us on his desire to put those third lanes in on each side. So let us kick the tires one more time. We'll come back to you, and if we think there's some appropriate political pressure that could be applied, we'll let you know.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, Mr. Burke would like to go through a couple things on the chart real quick.
Awesome.
I'll do it from here just so I stay on the microphone there. So we had three capital items that have come up for consideration since we put the budget book to print. The first one is our own oversight from a staff standpoint, which is the sports complex field conversion and parking lot. Some of you that have been on the council a little while may remember that for a number of years we've been looking at the sports complex on either side. They're moving some of the parking elements into the field so that we freed up that parking area for economic development. To do that, we needed to take, first we needed to move our maintenance facility. That's been completed this last year. The second part was we have two kind of half fields that are in that area that needed to be converted to full fields so that the teams didn't lose any space or playing area. We started that project a couple of years ago. Thought we were just carrying it over. Turns out we had actually turned the money back in, and so need to reestablish that project on the list. So that's a 22.5, not 225. So just to clarify that, that's not nearly that large.
It's a Major League Baseball stadium at that point.
We got the Diamondbacks coming to town. I don't know.
You should note that that is two decks.
Yeah, Phoenix doesn't want them,
That's
so you
true.
decide to move them down here.
Yeah. No, that is true. The increase, there's an increase in there associated with, before we were just moving surface lot to surface lot. This now contemplates a parking garage, so a double-decker parking garage to improve the number of spaces that can be accommodated out there.
How many spaces are anticipated?
I believe it's 1,100, is that what it said? Yeah, 1,100 spaces would be in this construction.
How many did we lose with the economic development that we were in there? Wasn't it 370 or something like that?
360. Oh, he's got it counted.
Yeah.
There you go, 280 spots were lost on the common bond side.
Okay. Okay.
The second item is one that I know a couple of you have had some interest. I think Mayor put in front of you some very rough design or images of it. But this is a conversation Councilmember Bullock has also brought to my attention, is the idea of looking at moving forward with the Paloma Rec Center. And so we do have some bonding capacity left to do programming and design. What we don't have is funds to construct, but this is going to be a multi-year project just to do programming and design in this area. But this would look at $3 million from those funding sources to start that project. So that's up for your consideration.
The idea.
And the third one, Mayor, if you want
Yep.
to take that.
Yeah, the idea around the recreational aspect, and we actually talked about it in our last meeting when we were at Vista, was
Right.
really skipping phase 2, which would utilize a crazy amount of water and grass and things like that, and then not necessarily needed, and really looking at Paloma phase 3, which was the recreational aspect of it, the rec center, and being able to have not only kind of an open event, but also, you know, everything from like a couple full-size basketball courts inside, pickleball courts inside, but also meeting space, kind of like what we just had our meeting in Rio Vista, but also almost like convention and open space where we could actually run larger events. A lot of times we'll use the ballpark, and it's great on certain days. Jokes aside for rainy day. Yeah, as long as it's not rain. But you look at that space, it limits us on holding larger events, right? And knowing there's schools like Basis and other schools and other charter schools up in that area, as well as just public meetings. To me personally, I think it would actually be good to have council meetings, a couple council meetings a year up in the northern side of Peoria, and you could actually hold them in a venue like that. And so I think it'd be beneficial for the community from that thought process, and that's kind of where the idea came about. So that may shock people.
We're good.
No, it's, like I said, we have the capability to fund the programming and design. We'll definitely have a big bridge to cross when we talk about construction.
Yeah, it's going to take a couple years to design that, though, obviously.
It is for sure, because there's some permitting elements as well, because it is a 404 wash, and it's in flood control elements that definitely come into play here.
Yeah.
The third item,
Actually,
Mayor, perhaps you could describe that one?
Go ahead. Do you have a question?
Sorry, just a quick
Oh,
question.
yes.
So again, understanding how that proceeds, and we talked a little bit about it, but just to gel a little bit better. Initial money's put in, you've got to design it. You know, here's what it's going to look like. You go through all the flood issues, the grade issues, all kinds of stuff. Great, here's the model that will work.
Right.
The process from there, is that going to be a year upon year discussion? Is it going to be able to be done in parts and phases, that we have to still do the pay-go or a bond? When do we actually come back and start talking some of those more meatier details? We'll just assume, let's say today we got the model, the 3D AutoCAD model. Yep, that looks great, we love it. What happens after that, just rough?
Can I take that for a second, Kevin? So looking at the situation, you're looking at 2 to 3 years of design, planning. You're up on the mountainside, so you've really got to look at the overall design elements of that, because it's not what this is. Doesn't need a pool, all those types of things. Realistically, what we need to do is go in all on driving revenue. So the further, the better off the pick is, the more revenue comes back in the city, and that infrastructure reimbursement component comes back out. So it might be it's not 3 years, it might be 3 years before you actually get the design elements done, go out to citizens, get their input. I think that's a big deal.
That is the programming.
You know, making sure that you actually get kind of the community involvement up in that area. And we talked about at one point in time having the library there. That doesn't really make sense. It really makes sense up by the public safety building up kind of in North Estancia, and really having those elements. We talked to Mary Lou about that as well, and that was a big deal, because it's kind of a destination location. You're not going to take your kids to go to a library there. So let's just say your timeline's 3 years out. You know, revenue generation from PIC is really year 6, 7, 8, and 9, you know, right? So you're starting to look at that, and you might be able to get money out to be able to go do that process. So 6 years, 7 years, depends on how all in people are on trying to drive that forward. The more companies we recruit, the more revenue we drive forward. So, you know, it's not an overnight project, obviously. So there's no.
Understand the full, maybe give me some rough, you know, timelines of what would look like.
And that's what we've talked about, just so I have it.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay.
Next element?
Yeah, third one is, Mayor, you're probably best suited to explain this one. It's emergency communications equipment in the event of a failure.
So I talked about this last night, a technical emergency management communication system, and being able to have, if is anybody a Verizon user in here today? Right, did anybody use their cell phones yesterday?
Yeah.
For about an hour.
We had a massive, less than 7 hours altogether, depending on where you were in the state, right? And they've got different issues. We go back to this conversation started when we had the 911 attack in, you know, I know the previous, you know, federal administration tried to say it was a shooting star or something like that, but the reality is there were 3 major outages. The entire 911 system on AT&T, FirstNet was down in the state of Texas. You had major Verizon users out. You had digital communications out. They were scrambling cities and everything else like that. you look at that situation, and then you look at Los Angeles. And with Los Angeles, towers going down and all that different capability going down and not being able to communicate, our job, the first job out of any of these situations when it comes to emergency management, is communication. And if they can't communicate, they can't solve problems. That's the simple fact. One of the conversations, I think we talked about doing smoke signals and teaching people smoke signals again or something like that. Because that's legitimately, when those systems go down, our next best option is to go to Walmart and buy walkie-talkies. And that's literally where we're at this situation. There is no emergency backup for the city of Peoria in every West Valley city. There's one backup for the entire state. Chief, I think it's 250 radios, 300 radios for the entire state of Arizona. Peoria cannot be dependent on what the state needs. Peoria needs to be dependent on what we need for our citizens, and that's the key to this. So we're trying to get grant money for this item. We've been going after both federal and state money, and there's a couple opportunities, and we think that we may get that. But we know that this is a critical need for the future of communication, and it is not an overnight thing. The thought process around this system is that it would be 4 mobile tower systems that would be able to span 106 feet, and that we in the city of Peoria would be able to create an entire wireless mesh network that would have the ability to have overlays on your phone, and literally have a capability of communicating both from fire to police to emergency management to city leadership to be able to solve those problems in a situation like that. We had this conversation, we pushed this through Tim Romer, and I had the conversation with Tim Romer. Tim was the CISO for the state of Arizona, if anybody didn't know that, and very capable gentleman. His comment was this would be the first of its kind because cities don't do this. And the problem is we can't be dependent on FEMA, we can't be dependent on anybody. We need to be able to be reliant on ourselves in that situation to take care of our citizens, but also have a capability that would actually feed out to West Valley needs. Buckeye, as an example, had some issues, and also be able to, whether it's wildland firefighting or anything else like that, we have the capability of being able to build that communication system and have that as a mobile capability. Our fire services and our emergency management, some of you heard him last night, he's probably one of the most capable gentlemen in the state of Arizona. And we have the right leadership to go do this. It is literally just the ability to go make it happen. So, sometimes when we need it, you can't go down the store and get it, right? This is not something that you just, you go down to the electrical store and try to wire this thing together and try to figure this out. So it's pretty clear that we need something similar to this. We met with other chiefs at the Emergency Management Conference, Goodyear chief, and we've talked to the Surprise chief, other chiefs like that. They're all in on this, meaning that they were like, look, we'll practice, we'll do training exercises for all of West Valley cities to go do these types of things. Everything from NASCAR, and utilize this for the backup. There's so many sporting events. We don't have to run extra training exercises. There's training exercises all the time. And that's really the key. I personally think it's beneficial to the city to try to make sure that we actually take care of people. There were a couple citizens last night that made a comment that I think actually goes right into this, is what happens if Estancia is cut off or something like that, right? Which could, with our traffic, even though we're trying to solve that problem, it could happen.
Absolutely.
And what happened, and I'm not talking cyber attack, but what if a truck runs into, digital capability and knocks everything out, or, all those types of things happen, and now you need emergency management up there. Little things like that you don't think about until it actually happens. And so I'm trying to think of the worst case scenario. What keeps me up at night is us losing a police officer or a firefighter, and then also losing a citizen because we're not doing everything we can to try to make sure that we have the capability to do this stuff. So that's kind of the thought around it. So.
Very good. So those are, again, on the list for further consideration and study between now and the next budget conversation. So with that, do we want to jump to our last?
We have 7 slides. If we can go, I'd rather go.
Knock 'em.
Brilliant. So you've heard us allude several times inside of the administrative budget, development engineering budget, fees. Part of the budget this year not only included the costs associated with several projects, but new revenues in order to cover for those. So what you may not know is you govern two policies, Council Policy 1-11 and Council Policy 1-12. 111 is general fund. I just refer to these as social programs. This is a fee rate established based on community benefits. So if you recall in last year's budget cycle, for those of you that were on the council, there was a lot of discussion around the pyramid and what gets covered, what doesn't. So a good example was if you're on a swim team, you pay the cost versus the fee needed to match, right? It was, you're paying 100% of it. But on a swim lesson, because we were trying to promote safety, we supplant that, we pay for that because we're trying to promote public safety, right? So these types of projects exist, or these types of programs exist on a sliding scale. Council decides the percentage, right? And then staff have the authority to then move the max fee and the fee collected as long as it stays within that percentage band that you've set the policy around. Council Policy 1-12 is development services. This is really a user fee. So, and as called out in the policy, these are expected to be full cost recovery unless there's some extenuating circumstances that you have decided a policy reason you are going to supplant those costs. It permits partial cost recovery if you should choose, and it also permits more than cost recoveries, like if somebody has an expedited plan review or an overtime inspections, we can charge more than our cost to recoup because of the burdens that it creates. So those are the two big policies that govern fees. From an administrative process, the policies say that staff are required to review those fees on an annual basis to make adjustments. Additionally, we are required to review those policies, 1-11, 1-12, every 3 to 5 years and make recommendations to the council to update them. And for those that were on council last year, when we came with the 1-11 changes, the team told you they hadn't updated some of those fees since 2015. Well, when we started to look at the development fees this year, they haven't been updated since 2018. The costs of doing business now are significantly different in 2025 than they were in 2018. So we decided to take a larger, broader view of this. And our strategy was, hey, how do we just put all fees into a bucket and review them every third year? How do we look at those policies and look at the strategies on a rolling basis? So what we created was this rolling table. So in year one, we're looking at development fees, so included in this, and those 27-6, 27-7, that's chapter 27 of city code. All fees are called out in chapter 27. So what we've really looked at this year was, let's go look at chapter 27, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14, B and D, which really drives around development-related expenses. So you can see development, engineering, building. D&E is about site and civil. You have planning, fire, medical, some portion of those, other equipment and other services. Year two, so that would be FY26, we'll go focus on those. These are really administrative fees. City attorneys, city clerks, things like this might be records requests, things like that have, nominal fees. And then year three will essentially be a rehash of what was done last year. So last year we did the department fees, which is 27-5. So we just try to put them in three very logical buckets. We'll put it into the budget process that says, hey, we're starting to think about this again. These groups of user fees need to be investigated. One thing I will note, though, just to be very specific, because there was a change last year, right? On the department fees, the ones, and so in year three bucket, 27-5, department fees. So this was really neighborhood and human services, parks and recreation. We made that change last year such that council is setting the policy for the percent band. So we want you to recover between 30 and 50% of cost. And then you have delegated the setting of the fee, the max fee and the actual fee to staff, and you adopt that in the budget. So this year when you're adopting the budget, there will be some fee alterations presented inside of that. and you'll be adopting those. So you always have to approve those fee changes. We just shifted a little bit how we did it, and that was last year on the department fees. What I wanted to highlight in the next slide is the approach we took. So what you're going to see, we'll have to come back to you for a Chapter 27 change related to department fees, but I wanted to take a moment and explain how we went about it, because you've seen some of the cost projections already presented today. So a great example of this is when I presented the development teams earlier, I told you we needed a full-time employee for our permitting software, right? And I'll show you where they fit into this allocation. So what we did is this spreadsheet, and we've got it for each of the groups. This example is building. We have one for building, one for site, one for planning, one for fire. We analyzed the revenues and the costs associated with those departments for the last 3 years, and we averaged them out. So we said, hey, we generated on average $3.9 million worth of revenues, and we incurred $3.757 million worth of cost. So we had a net gain of $200,000. Then we said, okay, based on where we are today and what we foresee, we're expecting a lot of development to occur, we need to add one person. So this person is accounted for in our budget. The 168 is a fully wrapped cost of that employee. We had some overhead costs. So this overhead cost is associated with the fixed term or full-time employee for the permitting software. The amount we're applying to this department is 44% of that time is being allocated to this department. We also went ahead and said, hey, we have some costs in our planning department, and 5% of their time is spent. So we did a time study, and we said 5% of their time is actually spent in the building review process, looking at things. So we had to account for that. And then Peter said, hey, if we're going to look at these fees every 3 years, we need to look at what our inflationary costs associated with pay raises and health insurance are. And so what we did is we took the 3-year projection of cost, and we took the mid-year point, and we built it in here. So we said, hey, we're going to make a little more on the front side, we're going to lose a little on the back side. So all we did was say, okay, we have some additional costs. So we took 3.7 million, we added up the bold items, 168, 54, 124, 250. You have a new net cost of $4.354 million. And when you look at that, you compare that to the old revenue, essentially you are now losing money. You went from a positive of 206 to a negative 389. We did the math backwards and said, we need to increase the fee by 15% to get back to break even to where we were. It's the approach we took. Pretty straightforward. We did this for building, we did this for civil, we did this for fire, we did this for planning. We will come back with a full explanation of it when we come back, when we're making the code change. We wanted to highlight it here today, though, because we've already presented the costs. It's unfair to tell you that we presented the cost without a solution to pay for it. Peter, you may have missed it earlier, Peter, it's been 4 hours. Peter said, hey, those 5 positions, we've covered the cost. This is how we're projecting covering the cost. Just a couple more things to note, and I've talked too much tonight, we'll get out of the way. The rise in fees is artificially exaggerated due to the lack of proper policy implementation. So we took it upon ourselves to say this policy has not been properly overseen. You gave it to staff to oversee, review it on fixed intervals. We haven't delivered. We are now going to deliver. We've put these things into a rolling 3-year standard work. Again, we're looking at 15% for building. We're looking at 15% for site development. I'm sorry, this says 20% for building. That's an error. That should say 20% for planning. I apologize. One thing we're doing right now is currently modeling these increases by every fee type. So we're looking at it, putting them in, and letting the math flow through to make sure we don't make a mistake. What we don't want to do is say increase it by 15%, apply it to the volume, and it increases cost $2 million, because that wouldn't be appropriate. It is also important to note that some of our fees are tied to outdated building valuation tables. So when you pay for a permit for a building, you're not really paying. The way we come up with the cost of that permit is we look at a building valuation table based on square footage and what goes into that building. We have an outdated table, so we want to tie that to ICC codes and a regionally adjusted indice, so it changes on its own. So as inflation goes, this table is a living and breathing document, so we're not chasing it all the time. The other thing we need to do, and we'll present again all of this inside of this code revision, the fee for site development, meaning civil work, anything on the ground or below, is 3% of the cost of your project. So if you've got $1 million worth of civil work, your permit costs you 3% of that. Well, when we went and did AMCORs, we realized we might need to think about this. And it isn't just an AMCOR thing, but we're thinking ahead to the PIC. Because what happens is if you have a $50 million site project, the fee is disproportionate. And so where we might have one employee full-time, but we're charging that person $4.6 million for their permit. That's not appropriate, and it starts to price us out of the market. So one of the changes we want to make is a tiered versus a fixed percentage. So I'm making this up because we're still working on it, but if you're less than $5 million, it's 3%. If you're between just over 5 million and 8 million or 10 million, it's 2.75, and we tier it down to be appropriate to the size. So I'm just forecasting what you can expect to see. In terms of next steps, we're going to finalize the fee forecast model. So we've seen some of this already. We built the table. We put the 15% addition on every single fee. We're using 2024 actual volume, and then we're forecasting it out to see if the revenue is going to do what we think it's going to do, because we don't want to screw that up. When we finish this, we have to do what's called a sensitivity analysis in the policy. It's simply comparing ourselves city to city to make sure we're not doing something stupid and pricing ourselves out of the market. We will post a 60-day public notice as we're required on our website. We will present these final fees for your review and consideration in a council meeting. And then depending on how you vote, should you go forward, we will implement that new fee ordinance. So that's really heavily focused on the development fees. One last slide, a couple of cleanup things we do need to take though. You will see various general fund fees. This is relative to the pyramid. You will see various fees updated in the final budget. This is consistent with the change that was made last year, where staff can adjust the max or the actual as long as we stay within the percent recovery as defined inside of 1-11. Additionally, we have a new fee. We've had the permission to implement this fee, but we've never created it, which is the industrial pre-treatment fee. So we have an industrial pre-treatment program on the dockets. It exists in code, but we've never charged anybody for it. So under Kevin's direction, the team is going to actually copy Goodyear's model right now just to get something on the books. We'll put that in with you now. We will come back later, though, as we learn more on the implementation of the program and amend that to be more appropriate. But for now, we'll have a starting point by just copying a neighbor, and then we'll build on it from there. Additionally, we're going to look at body cam footage. We get a ton of body cam public records requests, and the redaction costs associated with that is significant. And so I think we charge $40 or something like that, and it simply is not commensurate with the amount of effort that goes in, so we're going to look at that. And we also need to look at public records request fees associated with that. And then one last one, little known fact, we do in fact pick up deceased animals. Should you have them, we have two fees. We have small animals and big animal fees. And so we need to go ahead and make sure that those fees reflect what our actual costs are to pick those up.
Any questions?
2
Seeing
minutes
none?
to spare.
Before we adjourn, can I just make one note, which is that I really want to thank the folks behind us that have put all this together. It kind of worked from back to front almost. So the folks in the very back have putting together those departmental budgets and the requests associated. And then the budget team right here along the counter, our CFO over in the corner. These guys have put in a tremendous amount of work. We've gone through a lot of iterations. It's been a pretty intensive last few months to get us to this point, but I really want to thank everybody for their work on it.
Anything else you wanted to cover?
God.
So we're done.
God, no, I'm done.
Look at this, it's 7, should we wait one more minute?
No.
We're adjourned.